Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rotten about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And take that away.
You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal.
That's like a science thing, right?
That's right. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It's a scientific fact that we are all up in your face. It is time for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it. I got a great guest for you today. Greg Puciato. He just recently, almost unexpectedly, I guess, thanks to the internet, put out a record called Child Soldier, Creator of God. Also, he's in the great band of excellent musicians known from other bands as Killer Be Killed, and Black Queen also, and then the mighty Dillinger Escape Plan. Anyway, very excited to talk to this gentleman. Busy dude, hell of a vocalist, interesting fella. This is your first time joining the show. The name of the show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. You can find the archives at protonicreversal.com. The show airs live Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific on radionope.com. Podcasted later everywhere. Patreon.com/Protonic Reversal to get the episodes sooner. Check out the archives that are all available. Anyway, thanks for all the feedback on the most recent episodes. It's always nice to get feedback from folks so they're getting something out of the show. So, let's get right down to it. Greg Puciato.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, there you go. We have signal. Yeah, sounds great, man.
Sounds good. Okay, man, these AirPod Pros sound fucking awesome, man. I'm consistently like an advertiser for like AirPod Pros. I try to push them on everybody. They sound incredible. But yeah, I got to get a new computer. I've been saying this for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, for whatever reason, like I'm like the opposite of people that like want to get like the new thing right away. Like I really have this enjoyment of like beating the thing until it's like turning into rust, you know, whether it's
right.
like a phone or a car or a computer. Like I don't get excited when the new phone comes out. I'm like, God damn it. Like, just like I gotta just let me try to make this phone last as long as I can. Or it's not even, I don't even know if it's about money. It's just some kind of weird perverse enjoyment of trying to like not fall into like a consumerist like cycle of like needing the new thing or like needing more, you know, whatever. And there's something nice about like being like, oh yeah, this computer's 8 years old and it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. As long as it's fine. Well, and whatever it is, I'm exactly the same way. Like, I mean, I went to perverse lengths almost to not upgrade my computer just because like, no, it's fine.
Oh, dude,
and then it wasn't
now
finally.
I've got like all kinds of I've got like external hard drives hanging out of everywhere and they're all full now, you know?
Right.
The problem really is that the apps are getting so big. It's like not even, and you know, you can't really you have to run an app off like the main hard drive. So eventually, you know, I'm at the point now where I have like my whole computer is like stuffed with apps, and it's not even the fucking actual files or the data. It's just the app itself is so huge. So like I'm at the point now where I have to delete apps to use others. You know, if I'm like, I need to use Photoshop, if I need to use, like a music program, I'm like, oh shit, I got to delete Final Cut and then reinstall it. And I'm like, wow, this is getting to be a little bit much now. I got to go get another.
Well, and then that's what they're doing now is that all the apps are, you know, they're always updating and changing and like, and they're just getting more and more resource intensive. And
dude, they do it on everything. You think you have the biggest, you're like, oh God, I'm good. I'm never going to need more than this amount. And then like, Pretty much. It's like, yeah, the PlayStation, they all do it too. You get a game, and then the game starts updating, and the updates are bigger than like your entire system. You know, you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah, the updates are bigger than the entire first supercomputer that like filled up an entire building. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, truly. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, here we are. All good.
Greg, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, man, I'm stoked to be doing it.
So I guess let's start with the newest thing, man. You got a new record out, maybe out a little earlier than originally planned, but Child Soldier, Creator of God. That's the most recent one. Cool record.
Yeah, it's fairly new. It's pretty new. I saw someone, send me a review or something, and like there was a comment on the review like, still really liking this record, and I was like, still? It came out like fucking a month ago. Like everyone's like, everyone's time. People just rip through things, man. You just absorb things so quickly now, and it's like, damn, that album's 65 minutes long. It's got 15 songs on it. You get done, and you think you're like, this is going to be a lot for people to digest for a while, and then a month later, you see someone say that they're still really enjoying it, like it came out like 1996. You know, and I'm like, yeah, I still enjoy Appetite for Destruction. That makes sense because it's 30 years fucking old, you know. But like, damn, I didn't realize a month was it already has some shelf dust on it, but so that's the way people are, you know.
Yeah, the forgotten classic Child Soldier, Creator of God that came out.
Yeah,
just recently.
Yeah. Dust that one off. Dust that one out of the archives from was that October? I was like, oh, I remember October, but no, it's I guess maybe because there's so much like everywhere. We've gone through so much insanity. Exactly. And sorry, I'm off topic. You're the first person I've spoken to today. This is the first. Talking to you was the first word that came out of my mouth today, so I'm all geared up. Just getting some coffee in me on an empty stomach, so we're gonna have some fun. But yeah, the last fucking month is like a lifetime's worth of fucking traumatic experiences from like it's like a lifetime's worth of the news cycle.
Right.
Whether you wanted it to be or not. I feel like there's like my entire life, which was like, oh, there's like the Challenger explosion, and then there's a couple Bushes and a Clinton, and there's a black president, and 9/11, and then that was all like one sliver, and then there's this giant eternal length of time that like the Trump thing has been that culminated in like the grand finale of like the last month. And like everyone I know is just so beaten down now by like the relentlessness of all of it, especially that 1 week, like the fucking first week of
so that 1 week of 2020 is like a year of 1998.
Oh yeah, dude.
1,000,
dude. That's 100% true. Like that's not even like just like a joke. That's like your processing speed of information has been forced to ramp into this like exhaustive, not biologically. You're not. It's burnout. It's mental burnout. You're not supposed to have things fucking flying past you that quickly, that rapidly, that extremely. We're not made for that. We used to get the paper. And, you read the paper in the morning, and if you were crazy, you got two of them. You had like an evening paper, because you just couldn't wait for the next morning.
Right.
So like,
for the real news.
And then like, if you're a little nuts, maybe you also watch the news at 10 p.m. or something. So you're just kind of like, but now it's just like, you've got this fucking everything coming at you all the time. And when you've got something like that 1 week, which was like that was the grand finale of just, I feel like of insanity, that it was just too much. It's like what, I remember when he got out of the hospital, when he said like he was like, I don't have COVID anymore, and then like I was like, fuck, man, I think was the debate like fucking a month ago, but it had been like six days.
Yeah, it wasn't even a week exactly.
Yeah, the debate happened, like all of the fallout from that, and then he's in the hospital, and then it's like, oh shit, is he gonna die? And then there's then he's like, okay, you're hearing a report about it every minute for the time that he's in there, and then all of a sudden he's out and he's fine and he's about to do a rally, and you're like, what the fuck, it just happened. That was, yeah, you're right, man. That was like all of 1998, straight up, just crammed in.
I'm ready for time to slow down a little bit. I think I'd be very excited for that.
Dude, remember they impeached Clinton, and like they like really just hammered that thing out for like a whole 4 years. The whole back half of his, you don't even know anything he did. Like, no one has any idea.
Yeah, what accomplishments? Well, like, he was impeached. I guess that's an accomplishment.
About Bill Clinton is that he played a saxophone,
right.
and he got impeached, and he was seen pretty cool. But like, you don't really know that much. But they drug that whole impeachment out for 4 years. Trump's been impeached like twice. Like there's you don't even remember them anymore. They're just like whizzing past. He's like, files a fraudulent lawsuit like just at like 9:15 that's just that minute. Then he's got another thing happens at 9:20. He tweets something at 9:25, and it's like no matter whether you try, it's like I don't go and look for this stuff. It's just there in front of you. Yeah, I'm talking to you about it because people talk to me about it, and then someone else talks to you see your buddy, and he's like, "Can you believe this thing that happened on the way during the time that it took you to drive to my house?" And I'm like, "Oh no, what happened?"
Yeah, what now? Well, and I think at least part of it is intentional, right? I mean, this dude comes from the world of reality TV. You got to keep him entertained. You got to keep him, pissed at you. You got to keep him on the hook for the next episode.
Dude.
And so that's what his whole ethos is.
And that if you barrage people with enough stuff that they just start thinking of everything like white noise, and it deadens them to the point where they're not up in arms.
Yeah.
Throw anything past them. And they don't care. You can start to slip things past them that they should be extremely offended by, like the fucking thing that obviously just happened with the Supreme Court justice or the fucking Pentagon people. He put his little cronies that he put into the Pentagon and all the or anything, or the fact that you tweet something, you retweet a conspiracy theory that's proven to be false. That really, in the sane world, the second of the president of a country retweets a fucking fraudulent conspiracy theory, which should be grounds for people to just eliminate him immediately. That should be in a sane world. You would be like, oh, the guy in charge is telling us shit that's not true. That's fucking immediate grounds for dismissal. But when you get to this point of crazy, where you're so beaten down, you're like, I don't care. I don't care anymore. I just want to play this video game. Like, you don't fucking. Right. You're so numb that every day it seems like nothing's real, and before you know it, you've got the situation that we're in now, where we're legitimately talking about things that shouldn't be talked, that are usually only talked about in obvious dictatorship or alarming that a country might be on the cusp of a dictatorship type of situation. And these are things that are just they just float past like the score of a football game.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember the whole 4 Seasons total landscaping thing? Like that crazy press conference? Did you hear about that?
That thing that happened a long time ago.
That was Friday.
Yeah, dude. I feel like I'm 1,000. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, how
and people are like, remember that classic meme? It's like, oh, the classic meme from last week? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. You send someone a GIF that they haven't seen, but that they've already seen like a million times. It's new to you, and someone's like, oh yeah, welcome to fucking October, bro. And I'm like, sorry, I didn't realize October was fucking half my life ago. But fuck, man.
Yeah, my friend Travis, I sent him a meme and he just sent old back to me. I was like, whatever, meme lord, fine, okay.
Yeah, congrats on being the 500th person to send this to me. I'm like, oh shit, sorry, dude.
Yeah, I felt really bad about myself after that, but I was like, all right, whatever. He's Mr. Meme.
I'm like, I'm old. I'm old, dude. You're so old that like lingo, I find out about lingo after people have already said it. I'm like, oh, kids are saying? Yeah. Like, no, that's what the kids were saying in 2016. I'm like, oh, all right, never mind.
Well, I think
you get to a certain point and everyone is like, or you get to a certain point and everything's just like, you can't keep up, man. I realize now that's why people tap out. That's why people tap out and like, I'm going to go live on a farm, or like, I'm going to go live in the middle of fucking live in the woods. Yeah, I'm going to just stop shaving and chop wood and just I don't care anymore. Like all the things that people should care about and should talk about, they don't, because there's so much other, people are so, we've got so much going through, coming at us all the time now, and that with just this guy alone, it's so much that you could find out that aliens are real, or that the planets, the town that you live in is going to be underwater in 10 years. You're like, cool, you just don't even stop looking for a house. Like,
whatever, Thursday.
You don't even believe it. You're on Zillow looking for houses, to buy in that neighborhood, and you still keep going. You're like, yeah, whatever, cool, man, doesn't matter. I'm going to buy a house here. Who cares?
So
be underwater. Don't believe it.
I was just gonna say, factor in all of that, along with the fact that since we're in quarantine, people are not able to do a lot of activities, right? So then we're,
old record,
people are consuming things quickly. Like someone can be like, oh, what's this show? Oh, you should check it out. And then okay, I binged the entire thing over the weekend. Next, and they kind of move on, and suddenly that's a part of their past. And I feel like I've seen the exact thing you're talking about, where people have this crazy warped sense of time now that I actually think it's been a really good year for records, but it is something where it's like,
it has,
there's a couple great records like, oh, that came out in like February or March. It's like, that seems like that came out 10 years ago to me.
Oh, dude.
And I get it.
I mean, dude, just the fucking, just the quarantine time alone. It's, I know people have said this, but it feels like March just kept going, like one long day. Like, day doesn't even matter. They're like, I remember when people were like, "Don't come, you can't come out for 2 weeks. Like everyone's going to be inside for 2 weeks."
Yeah.
That everyone freaked out. Everyone was like, "Oh, what am I going to do?
2 weeks.
Fuck that! Yeah, 2 weeks. Fuck that! They want us to sit inside for 2 weeks, and then I didn't really. I was like, oh shit, this is it. There was like a couple days where immediately I was just like, oh, this is I didn't know that humans were going to end this way. Like I wasn't like, this just got real interesting. Like if someone said that an asteroid was going to hit like next week, like it was just like, oh shit. In like 3 days, we're going to be living in this weird Mad Max existence where there's bodies all over the street, fucking people just dropping dead left and right. And, the air is toxic and animals are all dead. And the whole earth just going to look like the road.
Yeah,
like
mundane apocalypse, though. It's far more mediocre and mundane than you ever could have imagined.
Yeah, it turns out it's just this real slow death, it didn't go down like that. But now I feel like you're so, accustomed to it, you've just kind of been beaten into this like daily, like, okay, well, this is the new way of things. That like everything that's old is going to seem so extreme, like it's going to seem so fucking crazy to go to a show. Or play a show.
Yeah. When we can do that again, it's going to seem. Yeah, it's going to. I expect you'll see people having incredibly emotional reactions just at being at a show. I know I will. Like just like playing or being at a show. Like doesn't even matter if it's good or not. Like oh my god, it's happening.
Yeah, to have some type of communal experience where there's people all around you, and once. It's going to seem nuts. Anyhow, let's get back to the thing.
Yeah. So the classic record, Child Soldier, Creator of God, came out a long time ago.
Creator of a month's worth of entertainment. Right. Child Soldier, creator of a few days worth of novel experience. That's what just keep coming out with new versions. Creator of 1 day's worth.
Well, you saw that.
Distraction.
Not to get off on another tangent, but the whole like Spotify bro CEO being like, artists need to be just making things constantly and putting them out. It's like, are you?
Stop on a rake, dude. That guy, give me a minute. Like, fuck, give me a break. That guy. The crazy thing about that company is like, I don't think like they're inherently evil, like streaming things or like it's not like I'm not one of those people that's like tech versus the artist. Like, I don't really think it's like that cut and dry, right? So like they're just anything. They're just like anything else that provides a service that eventually just becomes a bottom line for shareholders. And once the company becomes a bottom line for shareholders, that's it. That's all they care about is just driving the bottom line. And then it becomes just a war between, for us, it's different than a regular company because we are the content that's driving those profits. So, we obviously have to look out for our best interest, but it's no different than it's ever been. It's no different than the record companies of yore or anything like that, as far as like our need to try to protect ourselves and our rights and mandate royalty rates and try to arbitrate for ourselves and anything that we can do to hold them accountable. But that when he said that, I was like, god damn, it's like kind of fucking crazy to know that the guy on the top of the pyramid of this thing is just completely fucking idiotic about the people that are driving his enterprise, like about the actual content that he's using to drive his entire thing. He's completely misinformed. The guy obviously has no shred of, he's never created any kind of artistic work in his life that's been meaningful to any degree. He has no idea how long it takes, no idea how much effort goes into it, how long of your life you've spent focusing on this or getting better at it or doing it. It's like, you can't just fucking, you can't stop and fucking become a dentist any quicker than he could stop and become a professional guitar player. It just shows such a lack of or that he'd be able to churn out. It's like, okay, dude, maybe you should go make a couple other Fortune 500 companies. Like, see how easy that is for you to fucking create another Spotify, or maybe about 3 of them, maybe 4 of them. Give me a break.
So, not only is the record available on Spotify, also this show is available on Spotify too, and it's sort of like, it's considered for whatever reason to be like a populist platform, even though it's like basically digital sharecropping, right? But again, you can you can write your manifesto in the woods about it, or you can participate in the world. And as it stands right now,
that's how I feel.
But it's hard because I think it by not just commodifying recordings and music, but like making it just part of like content.
I hate the
it bums me out.
content. I think is kind of a reprehensible word. Content is more or less like white noise. It just means white noise, and that you just got to keep stuff pumping out. That's not the why. Like that, I don't think if Daniel Day-Lewis made a movie every month, that wouldn't make him any better of an actor. It wouldn't make his movies any better. I wouldn't be any more inclined to watch them. Like, he'd make them when they're good, and I'll keep making sure they're good, and I'll keep paying attention to you. When you release something.
Right.
Like Quentin Tarantino, keep making good movies. I'll keep paying attention to you.
When one comes out, it's it's going to be worthwhile. It's going to be like there'll be something cool in it, and like I think there's a different experience for someone that, as you say there, which like I would say those are artists, and then there are folks that are aggregators, and they have they profit more off of more things being created. Doesn't matter if they're any good or not. I mean, look at Netflix, right? There's all these series and like Hulu and stuff where it's like, who is this for? Like, who made this? Yeah. Who is it for? This looks terrible. And then, like, I don't know. They just assume someone's going to randomly click on it or accidentally click on it or something, and then just like, oh, whatever, it's already on. I don't understand the mindset necessarily, but
I get it from their end because they are just,
that makes sense for them. Yeah.
In the business of just come one, come all. The more shit, the better. But from like what I find to be the thing that's jarring to me is the idea of like. A buddy of mine said this. My partner in federal prison, Jesse Draxler, said this. It's like, a lot of people have they want to be heard rather than have something to say, and there's a gigantic difference between wanting to be heard and having something to say. There's a difference, and that in its own is it's like the difference between art and content, or the difference between substance and content. It's like when you're getting ready to say something, or make a post, or anything that people do, like wanting to be noticed or wanting to get some attention, whatever your thing is for expressing or outputting into the world. Like, I feel like you need to ask yourself the question, like, am I getting ready to output because I have something to say? Or am I getting ready to output because I need the little dopamine hit of wanting to be heard, of wanting to be noticed, of wanting someone to pay attention to me? And those things are character flaws, and those things are eventually things that are going to lead to depressions and anxieties because they're all going to be short term. They're going to turn you essentially into addicts. You become an addict of your own. That's why it's like a social media thing. It's like it's so detrimental for you to release anything when it's not because you have something to say. It's just because you need something inside of you to be filled up because you're empty and that says a lot about the world. It's like, why is something the way we're living in this capacity where we've exalted, we reached the zenith of reality TV, like with Kim Kardashian, and we've reached the zenith of like wanting to be heard without having something to say with like things like Instagram and TikTok, and it doesn't mean that everything on those things are bad, or it's not it's not some old person that's like fuck Instagram and TikTok. It's like, I think those things are great, just like I think Spotify is great, and just like I think music is great, and I think movies are great, and Netflix is great. It's all great, but as a creator, you have to ask yourself, am I creating something, or am I saying something or putting something out because I have something to say, or because I want to be heard? And if it's just because you want to be heard, then you should not do that thing, and you should look within yourself and be like, what is it in me that isn't being fulfilled in my real life that I feel the need to contribute to this fucking barrage of white noise, or that I want to be famous so badly, or that why do I feel so marginalized and neglected and unseen and unheard in my life that I'm basing my value on whether or not strangers like my photos or listen to my music, or
right.
It's that, and that to me says a lot about where we are in modern society, and it all circles back around to why we ended up thinking it was okay to elect a fucking reality TV show, a famous person, as the president, and think that he would do a good job. Like, I don't know how to fix pipes, dude. You wouldn't let me fucking come plumb. Like, I wouldn't be like you wouldn't hire me to plumb your fucking stuff, like your toilets, or fix your electricity. You would get someone that's professional to do that. So like, we've got this fixation with the idea that someone who is being heard the most is valuable. It's like, oh, if I could just be heard the most, if I could get the most likes or the most plays, or getting, if I can, it's like even showing people the play counts on Spotify. It makes it into like, if I could just get the most plays. But there's 8 million bands, that have a trillion plays on Spotify, and you go to see those bands and there's 20 people there. It doesn't mean anything. It's because they got on some playlist, and it's just like Lindsay Lohan has 8 gazillion followers on Instagram. No one's trying to put her in a fucking movie because she can't fucking act, and she sucks. So like, it doesn't matter whether or not, like, you get all these things and these people it's an empty pursuit, and I know this takes away this we keep going on these tangents, but like
I do want to get to music eventually, but I think you hit on an important point because I've always talked about social media, especially celebrating the individual without supporting the needs of the individual, and kind of feeding into these same things you're talking about.
Yeah. No, it gives everyone just this platform to get the hit of being like, I said something, I said something, I showed you something, but did you show me something? Really?
Did you?
Yeah. Or then you're like, fuck, how come only this many people like this instead of that? Like, I guess I should give them something more like that. And it starts actually like, you start forgetting who you really are. You start forgetting what your real personality is. Or, and that's the problem with all the Spotify shit too. It's like these, bands or artists, they start catering their music. And this, we can get back into my record through this, but we'll find our way back in. But like, you can, you get into, like, you're like, oh, this kind of song is going to end up on a playlist, so I got to make this kind of song. Or this song,
right? Yeah.
I loved this one, but it didn't do so hot. But this one that sounds like 8 million other Black Keys songs did pretty good, so I'm going to keep making stuff that sounds like that, even though I really don't like that kind of stuff, and I'm just going to start doing it. And then you're not an artist at all. You're just a content producer. You're just basically you're being commissioned by Spotify almost to keep making this thing that isn't. Or you're being conditioned, and you're going to lose your personality. And again, that's another thing that's going to lead to depression, not being able to find yourself as an individual and express your actual individuality, because you constantly are morphing and shape-shifting into what you think that the algorithm or the fans or the likers or whatever it is that you're trying to court, whatever's going to make you bigger, and not what's going to make you truer, or what's going to make your fucking journey of self-discovery more exciting and rewarding, but what's going to make you like bigger in like some kind of real vapid sense of the word. And then you celebrate other people that are like that, which is how someone like Trump gets into office. You're like, oh, that guy's really famous, and he's kind of funny, and like a lot of people know who he is, so it's just like, fuck, really? Like,
yeah. People are just like, oh, fuck things up. Well, he did. All right.
Yeah.
Because you can never.
Shit up. It sure is. Dude.
You can never ever discount the like, oh yeah, he's just gonna throw a bomb into the room. Like vote, like those kinds of folks that are just rightly pissed off because they don't feel that they're being represented, right? So that's exactly it. So that's what people are forgetting, is that the reason that he got into office is because there were so many people that felt marginalized and unheard by the system, and lost faith in the system, and thought that the system was just a bunch of like elites that were kind of just like only looking out for these causes, that they don't really understand, because most of the country still is in the middle of the country or the South, and they don't, they kind of get it in their head that you're not being heard, you're not being listened to, and it's all these people in rooms that they could never afford to be in, dressed ways they could never afford to dress, talking about shit that is so far off their radar because they're living paycheck to paycheck, fixing cars in Alabama, like it, and I don't mean that as a pejorative, I mean that as like just they're saying that they just felt disenfranchised and unseen. And here's this guy posing as one of them, even though he's a fucking spoon-fed gazillionaire who's never really worked for anything a day in his life. They're just like, oh, this guy says he's one of us. He's going to listen to me. He's going to be an outsider. He's going to come in, and he's not going to be a fucking, because they see politicians like car salesmen. They're like, hey, these people just say whatever the people in front of them want to hear. So here's this guy, doesn't give a shit, says whatever he wants, does whatever he wants. He's going to come in and shake it up. And it's like, man, you can't forget once he's out that the reason he was in there was because there's a shit ton of people that felt unheard. That doesn't go away. That doesn't go away, and those people and those feelings don't go away. So that's something that's something we're not going to solve on this podcast, but it's something to remember.
Back to the record, damn it.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we actually talk about the record? Yeah. Well, I think it's. So you're talking about people kind of chasing trends and trying things for the sake of like, oh, I think this will be popular, I don't get that vibe in any way, shape, or form off of the record. Like, I think it's genre wise, not something you would strictly put in like one bin, in a genre bin in the record store at all. But like, not in a way that seems very authentic, and like it seems like you've taken the same intensity you put towards other things towards it. And
I just don't care. I don't care. It makes me miserable. It makes me miserable to imagine caring. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't find any enjoyment in it. And I know that there's songs on this record and there's songs that I make, and there's bands that I have and things that I do that are not heard by a gazillion people who would love those things, especially on a record like my record, because of if you exist outside of the algorithms that are in place, I've seen them all. Like I've seen the back end. I know like a bunch of people that work at these places, and I know people that run shit that I've seen the back ends and how I'm tagged and how songs are tagged, because each song, each band, each artist has tags attached to them in the back ends of these systems like Spotify and Apple and things, and they can be manually overridden, but it's really difficult, and you got to talk to like 8 million people to try to get them to do it. They don't like to do it because that means that they're wrong. They don't like people that operate in different realms of
that
music.
pay attention to the back
they
end.
don't.
Yeah.
They don't want people to operate in different genres. They don't even want someone to have like a Dillinger Escape Plan or a Killer Be Killed and a Black Queen. Like they don't even like it in different bands. So when you put it on the same record, it just fucks their whole thing up. They don't know what to do with it because they can only categorize the record as one thing. So they're like, well, you have to pick metal or you have to pick alternative. You can't pick both.
Yeah,
so,
and you've got songs that are like, kind of heavier.
So then you have Temporary Object, right?
Yeah.
I get Temporary Object, and that ends up in a playlist with like fucking Code Orange and Neurosis and like, just all anything that's under the metal umbrella, which they shouldn't even be in the same playlist, but they just throw them all in there. It's like brand new metal, and I'm like, oh, there's a song that sounds like a fucking, there's a song that sounds like Seal. You know what I mean, or something.
Yeah, it doesn't have that vibe at all.
Or Tears for Fears. It's got it has nothing. If you heard Temporary Object, you would never in a million years guess that was the same person that made a Killer Be Killed song. You never in a million years. So, but it's sitting right next to all these metal songs. But they don't do that in the reverse. It's not like Fire for Water ends up in a fucking synth pop playlist. Yeah. They just because they have me as an artist tagged as
in that
all
thing.
This metal shit. All this metal shit, so that no matter what I do, if I do a song that overrides the tag, it really, really has to work a lot harder to get past all these. They have to get past the fucking artist algorithm. It has to get past the album algorithm. Like it has to get through all those things and somehow weed its way into a fucking playlist that it actually belongs in. Because and 90 times, 99 times out of 100, that just won't happen. But I just don't. I don't care. Like I can't care. You have to make the thing that is the true. Yeah. You have to make your thing, because I know on a long timeline, my whole thing is going to be me, and the people that are supposed to find it are going to find it. And if you're not into all of it, you don't have to be into all of it. If you're into some of it and you're not into all of it, or if you're into all of it, like whatever. It's not my problem. That's the way I look at it now. None of those things are my problem. There was a point when I freaked out about it all. Like I freaked out knowing that like the Black Queen wasn't going to get heard by a lot of people who would love it because it would get tagged as like metal. And I freaked out for a minute about stuff like Temporary Object and Pair of Questions not possibly finding the right, all of the people that would love it. But then those people would also just come in and they would hear, the second track on my record or the third track on my record, and they would be like, oh, like I'm not into this. Like, and that same shit happened to the Dillinger Escape Plan plenty of times too. Millions of people that fucking heard Unretrified came through the door and were like, oh shit, like as soon as Panasonic Youth started, they just turned around and walked out of the room. They were like,
this isn't what I signed up for. Yeah.
It was on a party, they fucking bail out and you never see them again. But like, some of them filter their way through, and it's like all you can do is just keep going and not worry about it, because you'll drive yourself fucking crazy. It's just not worth it, man. So
well, and it's it's a eclectic record, but not in a way that seems like it's forced or anything. I mean, like a song like Down When I'm Out is like, I mean, that would sit nicely with like Jesus and Mary Chain or My Bloody Valentine, But then by the same, and it's like, it would, if someone were just to listen to that context list, they would never be like, oh, this is the guy from the Dillinger Escape Plan. They probably would never know that, because they're coming in with a preconceived genre notions based on what happens.
Well, yeah, but it only happens in music, right? So it's case in point. I was at a buddy of mine's house last night, and on the background on TV was Full Metal Jacket was on cable or something. Full Metal Jacket was on. And I was thinking about Stanley Kubrick, like I've talked about him before, but like you think about movie people, I think about film a lot, and they don't get that to the degree. Music is hyper genrefied in a way that is really doesn't celebrate individualism, and it doesn't celebrate the finding of individuality. And that in the same hangout last night, we went to get food and we turned on the radio and a Doors song was on. And I was thinking to myself, and we had a conversation about those two things. I was like, man, the Doors, like what a unique band, like what a unique sounding band. And pretty much, or Stanley Kubrick, like what a unique artist, and like he didn't make horror movies. He just made The Shining. He didn't make war movies. He just made, fucking Full Metal Jacket. So like, you don't get the thing that you get in music where someone's like, what is this guy's deal? They're like, what kind of music does this guy make? Or what kind of things, how can we put him in the smallest possible niche? In things like film, you can make movies that have a comedy scene and a horror scene and an action scene all in the same movie, and someone's not obsessed with trying to get you to declare what kind of movie it is. Or if you're a filmmaker, people don't obsess trying to tell you what kind of, artist you are. They just are like, oh, this is the kind of movie. In a dream scenario, as an artist, you want to be at a point where someone can say, I don't really know how to explain what kind of movies Paul Thomas Anderson makes, or Quentin Tarantino makes, or Alfred Hitchcock makes. I just like them, and they have a certain feel. Yeah. So like, how do you explain David Lynch? I can't really tell you what David Lynch is, like, genre is, but I can tell you that I know what he feels like. And art is a feeling. It's an abstract feeling, and it's not meant to be inherently. It's not meant to be defined in straightforward analytical, terminology. That's art is an abstract feeling that you create like a vessel for. And the ultimate goal of an artist should be to explore his individualism to the furthest potential, to where he has a fingerprint, or finds out whether he has a fingerprint that is strong enough to travel not just a long time in a career, but like through different mediums. Like, be able to say, oh, this thing is a different genre than this thing, but it still feels like me, and it still sounds like me, or it still sounds like that guy or this guy. And those things used to be championed in music, like pretty much up until
look at David Bowie. Look at
up until the fallout of the industry. Once the money fell out of the industry, then people became super protective about, oh shit, we've got a small audience. Let's just make sure we don't lose that audience. Let's make sure we don't do anything to piss off the people that are spending their money on us or get them to leave. And in the past, it wasn't like that. It's like, even if you look at alternative and grunge, all those bands they did, of that era, they didn't sound anything alike. It's like, not like Nine Inch Nails and Rage Against the Machine and Soundgarden and fucking Mudhoney all sounded the same. They didn't sound the same at all, but they would all be on the same alternative station, or they would all be on 120 minutes. Going back, it's not like classic rock. It's like, oh, you say classic rock, and it's not like all bands sound like Aerosmith. It's like or all bands sound like the Rolling Stones. Like the Doors sound fucking completely different than Jimi Hendrix, or that sounded completely different than Queen. But they were all trying to find their own thing. It wasn't like they were trying to just do the thing that would make them money, or pick a genre and just operate in it. Like, what would you even tell someone that the Doors were, the Queen was? It's like, here's this fucking guy rambling spoken word. There's a guy with an organ. Like, if I told you
organ instead of the bass, it's like just instrumentation alone. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, or if you try to explain Queen to someone, you'd be like, I don't even know if I'm up for that, man. Like, I don't even know if I can take all those ingredients mashed into one thing. It's like, so it's like, yeah, these people are Primus. Like, how do you explain that to someone? Like, or how do you explain the Chili Peppers? It's like, whether you like what they turned into, or like, because there's, but like Blood Sugar Sex Magic, that film's crazy. Like, that's a crazy mashup of things.
Right.
Like, fucking, you would never put all that stuff in a band and think to yourself like, oh, that's going to work, but like, people were so into finding their thing. And now it's just like, how do we protect, how do we not lose the dollar? It's like, I never thought to myself, should I, on my record, I never was like, should I put this next to this? Like, is that going to be tolerable for people? And it's like, no, the second I decide not to do the thing that I want, you're no longer in charge. You're chasing something, or you're letting your audience lead you, or you're letting an imaginary audience lead you, even, which is even weirder.
Right.
Like, you're trying to imagine that someone's going to like one thing and not like another thing. It's like, whatever, man.
Like you mentioned Temporary Object. For me, without it necessarily sounding like Faith No More, it has Faith No More kind of vibes in the way where they would have like the more like low key,
right.
Croony's the wrong word, but kind of like
I know what you're talking about.
Take it down a notch kind of thing. But then that would be sitting next door to like Midlife Crisis and stuff like that, and like it works because they would have they for the most part have the trust of the audience to like come along for the ride. I think that's the key, is like getting to that level of trust where I think artists like that had a huge influence on me. Not it's funny that you bring them up, because people always assume that, like, they people are always looking for the vocal tie-in with me in that band. They're always trying to, like, because you're both good
talk
singers.
about me and Pat. Right. Well, they always say, thank you.
In a heavy genre. Good singers in a heavy
genre. So it's flattering, right? And but it also shows people's frame. It says more about the listener. It says more about people's frames of reference being really narrow. That people are like, sounds like Patton, and I'm like, no, we don't really. You know what I mean? Sound that much alike. Honestly, we have pretty good different tonalities, and we have a similar range. We have different tonalities. Like I can tell you in my head what I think the differences are, and I feel like I'm more emotional, and he's a little weirder. I don't know. There's like a lot of different.
Yeah, I guess I was speaking more for vibe-wise.
But I felt like the thing that really influenced me about that band was the same thing as when I heard Eye Against Eye, like from Bad Brains. I feel like those kinds of bands. So when I heard From Out of Nowhere and then Angel Dust, like that blew my fucking mind in terms of like, oh, right. Like you can just be you and operate in different realms and operate in different mediums and like it suddenly didn't seem crazy to me to hear. And like Eye Against Eye, when I heard, hear a punk song, a hardcore song next to like a reggae thing.
Song,
this is fucking insane.
Yeah.
But is it, you know what I mean? Or is it more insane that someone just decides like, hey, this is the only thing that I'm going to do. And I'm just going to do this over and over and over and over and over. It's like, I'd like to believe that there are people who only want to do the same thing over and over and over and over, and they're still as amped on their 19th record as they were the first time, and they've never done a side project, and they've never had another band, and they've never done anything else. I mean, like, more power to you, man. I'm just not that kind of person. Like, I'm not that kind of artist. Like, I can't imagine being that and doing that. It's not for me, Like, I love, like, I couldn't do an album full of just Temporary Object. I couldn't have Killer Be Killed be my only band. Like when Dillinger Escape Plan was my only band, and that band did all kinds of shit, I still felt frustrated and felt trapped when it was just that, or So it's like I'm not the type of person who can do one thing all the time and feel like that's the extent of my excitement for not just it's not just musical excitement. It's a combination of like how I feel inside, needing to get out. Like, I just feel aggression and wanting to like make aggressive music, or so it's like you have different emotions as an artist, but as a person who feels excited musically, I'm excited by a lot of different avenues and a lot of different things. And like, I never think to myself, I'm not going to go down this pathway just because it's not what I'm already known for. That seems fucking bizarre.
And it's interesting too, because with Dillinger Escape Plan specifically, it was a genre that band kind of helped carve out. Like, I mean, there are bands like, Botch or like Converge, the sort of like fellow travelers. But it's hard to explain to kids these days. Don't understand that there wasn't like an easy genre of that. No. Like it was like when I first heard Dillinger Escape Plan, it was like, oh man, this is like an atomic bomb like coming in from Pluto or something. This is awesome, because it was a bunch of things I liked. Like it had that sort of Bad Brains style energy, but then it had like crazy like precision heaviness and weird time signature stuff, and same thing when I heard Botch and and Converge, things along those lines. And it's something where later on so many bands kind of like were inspired by that I was able to use like, oh yeah, they're trying to do like a Dillinger Escape Plan kind of thing. And that meant everybody kind of knew what that meant, because it's not like all the records sounded like that. But
right. But yeah, that's wild.
But I was actually able to do it, and people knew what the hell I was talking about, as opposed to like, try to explain Queen. I'm like, how long you got, Yeah.
I think that's the thing I'm proudest of that band, is that we managed to have a sound that like sounds like us, like even when it's not the same style of song. Like you would be like, oh, that sounds like Dillinger, or someone could say like, oh, that, like you said, they could compare someone to us, and you kind of would know what that means. And it doesn't necessarily just mean you're playing a time signature at 200 BPM with someone screaming over it. Like it can mean that, but it's a larger thing. Like you could use it in a bunch of different ways. Or people are like, oh, I've seen those guys play. It's like they try to do like a Dillinger thing on stage, or so there's like different facets of it where I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool that we became synonymous with certain things, or we defined certain, we had enough of our own thing going on that there's other people that like, because that's hard to do, and it's kind of, you can't really do it accidentally. You can't or intentionally. You can't do it intentionally. You can't just be like, we're gonna have our own thing. Like you kind of gotta like the only way to do it is to not care enough that you just really just are into your own thing. You're into your own act of self-discovery and individualism, your individualist pursuit as an artist. Like you're into it so much that you don't care, and that you aren't doing it for populist reasons, and you eventually will find enough of your own thing that someone could not rip you off, without being immediately called on it, like a Primus or like a Doors or like, or if you say someone's like Faith No More, like I know what you mean. Like there's different contexts, you could tell me that, and I would know what you mean. So yeah, it's kind of that's pretty crazy.
And I almost think it's like the Melvins. If someone says something sounds like the Melvins, like what does that mean? Well, it probably means they sound sludgy or whatever, but that isn't all that the Melvins do. The Melvins do plenty, but then by the same token, you kind of understand that cultural shorthand, and it's maybe a little disingenuous as an artist, but it's valuable when you have. Like saying something is like, oh, I saw this movie from this new director and it kind of reminded me of David Lynch. It doesn't mean it's going to be a David Lynch ripoff. It just kind of gives you that sort of like, it's maybe going to spark these areas of the brain when I'm watching it, and it might be a little mysterious and like shot like in a certain way or whatever. I'm explaining that poorly.
Dude, to go back to something else you said that's been I haven't been able to sound off about it at any interview so far, is that when we're talking about genreification and like the record being all over the place, I'm really shocked by the amount that that's been brought up to me in terms of like, and I start thinking about Miss Machine. Miss Machine was fucking 16 years ago. So 16 years ago, Unretrified was on the same record as
right.
Right? So I'm like, when people are like, there's so many different things on this record, I'm like, did you not hear the Dillinger Escape Plan for the last 16 fucking years? Like, did you not know that I had a band called the Black Queen that's 5 years old now that existed at the same time as the Dillinger Escape Plan?
Parallel,
like, what have I been fucking doing, man? And that's why you go back to like the fucking getting tagged certain wrong ways and shit on these algorithms. And it's like, well, for fuck's sake. Like how it's, people are just constantly trying to do it to you to the point where they even just don't even pay attention to what you've already done long ago. They're just like, Robin Williams, comedian. And I'm like, well, I guess maybe, yeah, somewhat. He's a comedian, but he also did Dead Poets Society and Good Will Hunting. And,
serious dramatic actor too.
He's really good at a lot of other kinds of things that you're just kind of like stealing from him by being like comedian. It's like that's the thing you have to keep. And it's to me, I'm so resistant to it. Like, I hate it so much, and it's like a lot of like so much of my motive for putting like that acoustic song first on the record was to be like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to sound like Dillinger. It's not going to sound like the Black Queen either. And then the second song is going to have a noise blast in it. So at that point, you don't know what the fuck's getting ready to happen.
Right. The title track. Yeah, that's got that kind of almost like glitchy. It kind of hits you in the face, but in a way that's.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I wanted it to be like you're having a kumbaya moment. You're fucking in your living room, and then a train comes through your front door. So like you're,
surprise, motherfucker! Yeah,
you explode. The guitar explodes. It's a whole different thing now. So like I feel like you've got to really work hard. Dude, metal's like porn, dude. Like metal is like the scarlet letter of music. As soon as a scream comes out of your mouth, you have metal written on your forehead, or like aggressive music or whatever it is, it's written on your forehead forever. And people just want more than any other genre. They really, more than anything, like they want you there. They want to keep you there. Like they want, it's like the WWF of sports. They want you to like, that's not real. We're not going to let them into the real conversation. I could make fucking nothing but Black Queen records from now until the time I'm dead. And people would still be like metal musician, and they did it with Dillinger, and we would get so mad. We would get so mad about it, and again, we had to let that go as a band, and not make that our driving force was to be pissed about that, because it just wouldn't end. It would just be like, oh, they're a metal band, oh, they're a screamy band, oh, they're metal. I look at our catalog now, and I'm like, fuck, 50% of our songs were probably singing, at this point, and like, and every record after calculating was a lot of stuff that wasn't just 200 miles an hour screaming at you, but those elements, those flavors are so strong. And the picture that gets posted is me diving off of a balcony or screaming in someone's face or bleeding all over myself. So so people see that, or they hear the thing that's like, oh, Jesus Christ, they hear like the beginning of a really crazy song, or a Limerick Death or a Prancer. They hear that, and then they're just like, oh, Jesus, that's just
firecracker going off in a room or something.
Then they're like, oh, they're that thing.
Yeah,
they're that thing. They don't think about One of Us as a Killer, or they don't think about Unretrified, they don't think about Black Bubblegum, or they don't think about some glitchy ambient instrumental or anything like that. They're just like, oh, right, the screaming thing that, people are falling all over one another and bleeding, and the guys hit someone in the face with a guitar, and they're just like, those are the things that they think, and then they're just like, that's what you are forever. And it's fucking wild, man. And just it makes again, it's and it's not the listeners, it's not the audience, because the audience that's what I've learned is the audience is intelligent and the audience is smart and capable of not thinking in those really limited parameters. It's reviewers and content people like Spotify,
right.
you know, aggregators and people that have a fucking horse in the race of marketing and niching and genrifying, and it makes their thing a little easier to get noticed, or it makes it easier to be tagged. Something needs to be tagged, an article needs to be tagged, or a band needs to be tagged, like whatever, you know, if something needs to be pushed or marketed, then those people have an interest in corralling you into the thing that they can neatly tie a bow on and give it to people, because it's like art. Like I said, it's not made to be neatly talked about. So what do you say? You need to have something to call this person, so you call Robin Williams a comedian. You don't. It takes too fucking long to try to explain to people, you know, that he did all this other shit. You know, it's like, I get it. It's just a pain in the ass.
I wanted to bring up, like, you know, first time Metallica had an acoustic song, a song with acoustic on it, flipped out, right? And granted, those are like different times and things along those lines, but people get really stuck in the rules, and I think that's something I find really interesting with Federal Prisoner and what you're doing now is it's sort of like you're just like, the art's going to be the art, and we're just not going to conform to these rules, and that's going to be up and down the line, like as far as like how the records come out, like what they look like, who you're doing it for, and I find that very admirable, because that's something that I like to talk to for different folks on this show, and you know, and that's something that is not genre focused at all. Like Sloan doing that with Murder Records in Canada, and you know, Steve Albini's long association with the Touch and Go, and there's all kinds of examples to give. But what's been like the biggest change for you? Because I really do want to get into like Federal Prisoner and the back end, because people don't like talking about that. That's not sexy for people. If you think about the world of music, there's almost like bands and labels. It's almost like a lifestyle brand, right? If someone says it's a relapse band,
right,
you kind of know what that means, right?
I look at it the same way I look at, you know, being an artist. Like, you just do your thing, and then the fingerprint will form itself. You know, I feel like it's just like the same thing I was just saying about like the individual expression and kind of just trusting that it will find a vibe on a long enough timeline. Like, you can tell the difference when a company is run by an artist that has a vision based on, or whether or not it's just run like it's you know, there's no clear thing behind it. Like, Apple feels different now than it felt before. You know, they're trying to maintain the thing, and they're trying to make it feel like the guy's thing, and they're trying to like kind of approximate the guy's thing, but it's never going to be the guy's thing. You know, it's like Disney, that they have a brand now and they're trying to stay within those bounds. But like, when there's the guy at the helm, it ends up, that's what gives it its template and gives it its feel. And if there was no Steve Jobs, there was no Walt Disney, those companies wouldn't have the template to operate in that they operate now. So, you know, even like a Sub Pop or Relapse or Epitaph, the way those guys
Discord,
feel,
whatever,
right, the way certain things feel is because someone at one point was true to their vision, and it just ended up starting to feel like that guy, and or you know, and it's like I said, it becomes something that's not quite definable. You know, it becomes harder to find. It's a feeling, and like, it's just like any you're with a person, and that person has a feeling, and someone could say, "Why are you friends with that person?" And it might not just be because you have similar interests, or they like basketball and you like basketball, or you both like these kinds of things, or you know, you both like these kinds of music. Sometimes it's just the way that you feel when you're with that person, you know, and the way that this person makes you feel, and that's something that you can't really describe. And that's something that I feel like the kind of labels and the kind of artists that I'm drawn to have that. Most of those people have that. Like, and I don't feel the label for me was born from necessity. It was born out of me not wanting to deal with other labels anymore, and realizing that I was an artist who was starting to get to the point where I on my own did have a really strong feel, and I did have a really strong like I'm really opinionated, and I have a, you know, I'm willing to do a lot of work to not have my vision be corrupted in a way that some people might not have the stomach for, or might not have the time or the drive for. And it's like all the ingredients in place for me to stop working with labels and to do my own thing, you know, were in place at once, and then my record was just sort of the thing that made sense to really get that out into the water. It's like I dipped my toe in with Fever Daydream, kind of. That was the first time. That was like the beginning, of me being like, I think I can do a lot without a label, and then learning what I didn't do right and what I missed and the things that I didn't cover, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't think about that. And, let me do this better. We could do this again. And then did Infinite Games and like corrected a lot of those things, but still I know what was missing. And I know, I learned both of those times. And, for Federal Prisoner, that was born again too, out of Jesse and I's, friendship. And like, we have the kind of relationship that normally, if I had the kind of relationship I have with Jesse, that would lead to some sort of musical partnership, because usually most of my friends end up, being are musicians in some way. And then if we have the kind of relationship or the kind of personal chemistry and the kind of ideological chemistry that I have with a certain person, then suddenly you're like, oh shit, we're going to do something together. You can kind of feel it. And like, sometimes it's immediate and sometimes it takes a few years, but it always ends up turning into something. And then with Jesse, it was like that, but because he's not, a traditional musician, it just became these other ways of working together. And then the Federal Prisoner sort of just grew out of us wanting to keep doing things together and realizing that we have this Venn diagram overlap of taste that made sense in like a label standpoint, and also me becoming more and more militant and about what I didn't like and about the record industry and what I didn't want to happen to my output, and conversations that I didn't want to have, and talking to people who weren't artists at the top of a chain, where these people have some sort of input into my work or some sort of ownership over my work, or fancy themselves as having some sort of valid opinion just because I took money from them to be involved, in a business partnership together, which is essentially what a label is ideally it's a partnership, but it's not. Most of the time it's not. You think of it, it's presented to you as a partnership, but most of the time you end up being some sort of work for hire, and you're just getting lied to about the nature of of what you're doing. But so it's predatory lending, but there was
totally.
No, it's true. Predatory lending. I'm not even saying that joke. It really is. Most of the time it's just taking advantage of the fact that they have more capital than you, and you're at a point of desperation, and not just desperation. They're taking advantage of people's passions, and most labels are not operating out of passion. They're just operating out of profit, just like we were talking about with Spotify. And that's really it. Whenever you're dealing with people that aren't artists and they aren't operating out of passion, they're operating out of bottom line. And you are pure passion, and you're purely just trying to get the thing that you love made and out into the world, then they have, and you don't have any means to do so, and or knowledge to do so, or the network's built and the road's built, and you don't have the access to that capital, then they can prey on you and put you in deals that aren't in your best interest long term, just to facilitate the need to release this passion project that your album is. So I was over it, and I didn't need it anymore, and I didn't need it, not just saying financially, but I was like, I didn't need it. Like, I have no tolerance for it anymore. Like, I won't tolerate my work being treated that way. I won't tolerate these conversations. And I for a moment, I was having conversations with labels about my record, and I talked to major labels, I talked to fucking indie labels, and people coming at me from all different sides, and I just couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't do it, and like, I felt it in me that I was like, this is something that I have to do. Like, it felt the same way it felt, for any band that I've ever made or some new thing that I've done artistically. Like, I could feel it coming from that same place. It's like, I have to do this. I cannot continue to put my output in other people's trophy cases for these and deal with these people that I don't want to deal with, and talk to these kind of people that I don't want to talk to. And then as soon as I formed the thing, then I could see it even more of like, oh fuck, now I cannot be that person to other artists. Now I can
right. You provide opportunity. Sure. Yeah.
In a way that isn't going to be predatory, in a way that isn't going to be taken advantage of, and they know that I've already been through it. Yeah. Oh, they know I've already been through it. They know I've taken guitars in the face and slept in one van of floors and come home from tours with nothing. And they know that I've already done all that. And they know that they have an ally against, because it's not like I said, it's not as simple as like an artist being the artist and the label being the man, or like the Spotify being the man, or someone being like on one side and the artist on the other side. There's good and there's bad and there's shades of gray and all of this stuff. And there's labels that don't suck and there's labels that do. And there's trade-offs for some things. Like you might really want the things that a major label offers you when they're offering it to you, but because you have no vision in terms of where you're going to be in 10 years, and then all those things aren't going to sound so good anymore. All the things that you traded away, you're going to want all those back. And like, there's just not a lot of people that I felt like it created itself out of a point of personal need and career need for me, but then it also became something that has driven a lot of new interest and passion for me from that side of it, of just becoming more and more militant about what I don't like about these other labels, and feeling more and more protective of artists in general, and feeling like we have to bring a lot of these conversations into the mainstream and not be afraid to talk about what's wrong with the kinds of contracts that people have been signing for the last fucking 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's valuable for everyone to be kind of in on that conversation as well, because it's something that, some of this stuff just doesn't ever get talked about. And there's also, what you've done so far is shows a high level of, there's an ethos behind it. The Raining Cement record alone, that's like, try to explain Queen, try to explain Raining Cement. It's like, okay, well, there's, there's this big book with all these photos, and it's kind of like a comp, but kind of not. And like,
yeah, I was super happy. That was, to me, I was as excited about that as I was about my own record, just because I was like, man, this is truly out there to like, this establishes a tone pretty early on of like art over commerce, and like being willing to like
make millions when you put together something like that at all.
No, but you are definitely sending a sign as to like what you prioritize and what you can, that we're going to, do things that are a little bit more, creative, and it's not going to have anything to do with genre. Like I'm not interested in being like a genre-based label any more than I am into being a genre-based artist. I just want there to be a certain level of artistic quality control that you associate with us. And to me already, and we're not even that far in, I can already distill like what our elements are, and it's pretty much being artistic, like a high level of artistic quality control, and being really militant about a lot of things. Like we're really militant about that artistic control. We're really militant, like I said, I'm getting more and more militant about the like kind of like my feeling of like fuck you towards the rest of the kinds of labels that I don't feel the way that we felt in Dillinger about bands that we felt sucked, and the way I feel as an artist about people that make music for the wrong reasons and make art for the wrong reasons. That's how I feel now about companies and labels, not just record labels, but companies, and you start to pay more attention to like what kind of companies you support and spend your money on, because now you have one and you understand the difference.
Spotify,
right? There's a massive difference. There's a colossal difference. Yeah. And like there's shades, there's a colossal difference between Apple and Spotify. Right. Like even in terms of, one resisted the, there was, a congressional royalty rate increase that was passed for between now and 2023, that all of the streaming services have to raise their royalty rates by like 50% between now and 2023. Spotify has gone to great lengths to try to appeal that. Apple has not, so like even behind the scenes, like those kinds of things, like, okay, you got to keep your eye on these people, man. Like you got to keep your eye on people and fucking, know what you're dealing with and be educated about what you're dealing with, and know that when you spend your money on something, what you're spending your money on, and is the, maybe you start using Apple a little bit more than you use Spotify, even if you don't like even if the interface isn't as good, which is not. Apple, fucking fix your interface. The only reason that people don't use Apple is because the interface isn't as easy to navigate, man. It's not. It
hasn't
doesn't
evolved
look as
in
nice.
like 10 years. I know.
No, dude, it doesn't look as clean and easy to navigate as Spotify. So, sometimes I'll use Spotify, and like, because it's just a little fucking easier to get to something. But like in my head, I'm like, fuck, So, but I've started to steer out of it now and use Apple more, because I know that behind the scenes, Spotify is just totally fucking fine with appealing, a royalty rate to the people that are driving their entire company. Like, instead of just figuring it out and being like, okay, maybe we have to cut costs here or there. It's like, no, they're trying to make sure that the artist is, their compensation stays down. It's like, fuck you. So you gotta really pay attention. It's no different than record labels, man. It's no different. It's like you might be like, oh, I really want to be on that label. That label, they got a lot of power and they got a lot of push. And if I could only be on that label, and then behind the scenes, you get a contract and you look at these contracts. It's like, I've seen it because I've been on 8 million different labels. Dillinger Records came out on all kinds of different labels. Fucking Killer Killed was a different label. Like, I've seen other people's contracts. I've talked to friends that are on majors about their contracts are like, and it's like, there's just things across the board from big to small where they're just trying to, throw shit past people and hope that they don't understand what they're catching.
They're not reading the fine print, so to speak.
Yeah. And then, like I said, that kind of more ethical awareness towards what a company stands for and how they're being run, you can start to see it outside of just like a record company. And then if you're the right type of person, you can't stomach like operating a certain way. Like, you're like, I can't become one of those people. I can't become one of those people any more than I could start writing Nickelback songs.
Right.
Like,
yeah. It's not you. Yeah. And why would you want to do that?
Doesn't feel good. Like, it's not gonna. Or if someone said, hey, Dillinger Escape Plan, we're gonna give you a few $100,000 for your record if you sound like Dillinger Escape Plan, but we're gonna double that amount of money if you just give us one fucking Disturbed song, or if you give us one Nickelback song, or 130 seconds to fucking wherever song. We're gonna give you like one thing that we can really smash home on the fucking that sound, or if you'll just rap, if you could just rap,
right.
Give us the when that was popular. Like, if you could just do a part that sounds like POD or something, like but you'll get twice as much money. And they float in front of you, and you'll be like, shit, I could buy a house. You start thinking in terms that are, and you're like, no, like, you got to get out of that conversation.
Well, because what they're asking is like to go put all this effort to like make this dog costume for a cat, and then like you still got a cat in a dog costume. Why don't you just get a dog, man?
Yeah, you got to look at them like they're like trying to pedal. They're coming up to you and they're like, hey, like they're fucking like the guy that's trying to give you candy or in your kid, or like some sort of kind of
right.
You're like the witch trying to get Snow White to bite the apple. It's like, hey, look at this thing, like, and you're like, oh, let me, like, really, you'll give us $1 million if I just let some guy fucking write a song for us that sounds kind of like this, like, and you're like, no, like, get those people away from me, and like, you can just start to see that. Like, I don't ever want to have to be in those conversations in my life, man. I don't, and like, federal prison allows me to not have to.
So the record you originally were gonna call it was gonna be under the name Child Soldier, and it was gonna be called Creator of God, right? And then you ended up calling it Child Soldier : Creator of God. Is there a reason why you decided to change it to be just under your own name? Was that like a statement of intent in that way?
Yeah. It just started to feel weak to me, and like I started to feel like it was like I started to really think about integration. Like, integration is a big thing that I struggle with, and a thing that over the last few years has been like a big what's been like kind of like, it's like this big behind the scenes thing for me of like, and I did it musically too, so it's like I'm really open as an artist, and it really is a very literal representation of kind of like everything behind the scenes for me. Is that like I really rebelled against what I was doing in Dillinger with the Black Queen, and then I really have blew everything up and did everything and kind of compartmentalized different areas for different things with Killer to Kill and Black Queen and my thing. And then I was like, oh, I'm gonna I started writing music that didn't sound like any of those things, but kind of sounded like a little bit of all of those things and all this other new stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm going to put it all in one thing. So that's step one. It's just kind of being like, oh, I'm going to do all this in one thing.
It's the clearinghouse rather than being like, 4 different EPs where this is like, the synthwave stuff. This is the shoegaze.
Well, right. Then you do think about those things that we talked about before. Right. You think about like, oh, can I like, maybe I should put these kinds of songs on this EP and make another EP that's these kind of songs. And I'm like, oh no, that's not what this thing is. That's not what I want to do. So then, first decision is I'm going to do the thing as a singular thing. And then it was called Child Soldier, creator of God. And the meaning behind that was, child soldier being that we are all kids that kind of, you thought that there was this dividing line between being a kid and being an adult. And there really isn't. You just started this kid that never stopped physically aging and psychologically aging and decaying and growing and decomposing simultaneously. And then you look at one another and you look at people's eyes and you're like, fuck, we're just like 5-year-old kids, 15-year-old kids that just kept going. And you're finding your way and everyone's struggling, everyone's dealing with shit. But the second you can really start to own your thing and start to really figure out who you are and what you really are and be not afraid of it, not ashamed of it, you can create whatever life you want for yourself. So that's kind of the creator of God
Creator
part.
of God, yeah, that makes sense.
It's like, figure out who you are, make all your shit work for you, deal with your bullshit, fucking figure out what you're all about, and then you can create your real life and be who you really are. And kind of like putting all that together in one thing, turning 40, like there's all these different things that were to me kind of like symbolic like points of like integration and actualization. Federal prisoner, like I feel like really actualized in life right now with all the different things that I have going on, and I don't so calling something my real name felt like the final hurdle, because that was the last thing that I protect. Like I protect it pretty viciously. It's like I don't have social media. I've drawn like a real line in my life between my artistic me, which I feel like is some reflection of my non-artistic self. It's like you have your non-artistic self, and then the reflection of that person is, I almost care about the reflection more than I care about the person behind the reflection. So like I've developed like Greg Puciato is like this third person artistic reflection of this other person that doesn't really have a name. And that's how I view myself. I view myself as this person doesn't have a name. I don't know. I just wake up and I'm here and I go through shit. And then I shit out these little eggs, these little nuggets of fucking, that are called albums that are basically like artistic reflections of what I'm into and what I'm going through and how I feel, like little Polaroids of my life. And then they go out and they find people, and I care more about those things than I care about the person that's making the things. And I've started to lose, I realized over time that I lost the integration of my own name. Like I'd seen my name so many times that
Okay, I see
that I started to view Greg Puciato as like this other person.
Who
and I
is
was like,
that?
he's kicking ass. Yeah. Like that guy's kicking ass. Like look at all the stuff that guy's doing.
Oh, that guy's real busy.
All these albums coming out, and he was just in Saskatchewan playing this show. And like, I guess, there's all these things that I look at and I read or I see, and I'm like, oh, that's wild, but behind the scenes, it's like, I was this person who went through all this stuff to make this album, but I don't even think, you don't think about that once it's out. You're just like, oh, there's that guy. And, I never talk about it to like a lot of my friends that aren't, so my friends that I don't work with, like, I don't ever talk about the stuff. Like we just hang out and we do stuff. And I didn't have things in my place that, like, I didn't have Dillinger Escape Plan stuff, and I didn't have Black Queen stuff, and I didn't have anything. I had completely segregated my life in a way, and I did it out of protection, to protect myself, but it started to become a detriment. Like I wasn't allowing myself to integrate and I completely separated my life into like, this is that guy and this is this guy, and I won't let these people into this side, and I won't bleed this side into that side. And I did it out of protection, and because I have a fucking little issue with like intimacy and attachment, and in general. And so it just felt healthier to me, and I saw how unhealthy I saw a lot of people that relied, like I said earlier, on social media and stuff to tie that into this. And I was like, well, I'm not going to have that happen. I'm going to have my artistic life and my public life. And that's all going to be one side. And then I'm going to protect the me that's behind all that, and not let people get close to that, and not let the two bleed together. And, so the record, I started to not enjoy that anymore. I started to be like, I need to just accept it. It is what it is. I am not just Dillinger. I'm Dillinger plus Black Queen. I'm not just that. I'm Killer Be Killed. I'm not just that. I'm this other thing. And I'm not just those things either. I'm also Greg behind the scenes that goes to movies with his friends and fucking, plays video games and hangs out with people and does stuff. And it's like, yeah, I'm a human too. And they're all the same person, and that can be okay. And it felt like I had to. And honestly, I've talked about this in other interviews, but a person that was really pivotal to me in all of this was Cantrell. Like Cantrell,
I was going to
Jerry.
ask about Jerry, yeah, because
Jerry and I.
Yeah, you've been friends for a while. You have a pretty kind of close artistic relationship, right?
Oh, dude, we're like, yeah, we are. Like I said, you meet some people, and you're just like, you have like an instant, like, oh, like we're like
you just know. Yeah, it's weird.
I talked
about that on the show before. It's really bizarre.
it's like, so you can have relationships like that are romantic. You can have relationships like that are there's just like something, there's a chemistry there as a person. And Jesse and I have it too. And like, there's, you know, people in your life that you meet that you're just like, oh, we've got a thing, you know, we've got some sort of thing that transcends how any kind of age difference or any kind of like monetary success difference, or doesn't none of that matters. You're just like, we got a thing. And he, to me, like as a person who behind the scenes, he's very integrated. Like he's not like slightly like he's all about everything he does, and he's all about everything in his personal life, and it's all that guy. It's all his name. His public him and him behind the scenes are all that name. And it's not like he, you know, if he's working on something solo, it doesn't even cross his mind to call it something else. It's going to be called Jerry Cantrell. And I'm like, that was to me. I remember when I started fucking really, when we were doing those shows together, and I was like, man, it was right when I was making that decision. So I had to stop recording my record to do the Cantrell shows. And it was really an integral moment for that to happen, because I was really on the cusp of whether I was going to call my record Child Soldier or not. And I kept flipping it. Like I kept flipping the demos in my iTunes. I would change the name from Child Soldier.
Just rename the files from one of the other.
I would rename them Greg Puciato, and I would look at them just to see if I could tolerate it, you know. And I was like, I can't tolerate this. I can't stomach this. I can't stomach that the same person that my mail is coming to is also the person, you know, that
the same person that gets the power bill is also this artist.
It's like it seemed ridiculous. I was like, I can't do that. That's so weird. And you know, then I was talking, you know, him getting ready for shows, and I was thinking, well, that would also be really weird if he was getting ready to play these shows and he just called them something else. It's fucking weird. That's not true. That's him. He is the guy that wrote Down in the Hole, and that is the same guy who pays the electric bill. Right. And that is, you know, and it's like, that's totally fine. Yeah. And that's the way like a healthy, integrated person is naturally. But I tell you what, man, it does fuck with you from a young age, to have like a lot of public attention or scrutiny. And when people tell me that, like, you know, giant celebrities are crazy, I'm like, yeah, no shit, they're crazy, dude. You don't think Tom Cruise is crazy? Of course he's fucking crazy. You know, like it fucks with you to constantly it splits your name off in a way that most people don't have happen to them when you achieve any type of fame or attention or anything at a young age. I think if you're a person that's naturally more protective and internal, you immediately go into like this, it creates like a shell, and you start to protect.
There's no shielding. Right, exactly. Yeah.
You start to protect, you know, you go really quickly. It goes from being something that you're really into, like seeing your own name in magazines and things and stuff. It goes really quickly. I think if you're a person that's more protective, you immediately perform like you split some section of you off. And that's what I did. And it took it to its logical extent to where I think my record became a necessity. It was like necessary for me internally to call it my real name, to fucking like get past
over
all
that hump
side of it. Yeah. And like, I think it's like turning 40. The Cantrell was like, to me, like a symbol of someone who hadn't done that and like has a really healthy integration of his personal and professional life in a way that like allows him to fully enjoy it all and to feel proud without feeling guilty, and to feel, you know, ownership without segregation, you know, or compartmentalization. And like, I was like, fuck, man, like I need to fucking blow that shit up. You know, I need to destroy that other and just create it all as one thing. And I knew as soon as the first song came out, and I mean, dude, I had a hard time with it up until like the morning of the song coming out.
And are you thinking like, oh, this should be Black Queen, or like, oh, this isn't, you know, like how do you
I just felt guilty. Yeah, I felt guilty about it being my name, and I felt vulnerable, and I felt like I didn't have any protection. Like if a fire goes off in a certain room and it's only in that room, you can kind of keep it in that room. But like something's on fire.
Burn. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's like your real name, and like you're gonna have to pop. You know, people are gonna be like, if something sucks, it's like your name sucks, and like you're doing a solo thing in general is scary because you're taking responsibility for all of it, and someone's gonna say it sucks. They're talking about you, you know. But you call it your real name, and then it's like, fuck, man, like that's the real me. You know, that's the real me that existed before there was a public me. That's the me that was in 5th grade, and the me that was, you know, a fucking kid, and like that all. And but it felt so scary and exciting at the same time that I had to do it. And then the first morning, you know, that it came out, it was on Spotify and Apple and all that shit. And I pulled up the page. It's like I typed in my real name in the search, and I saw a song sitting there. It was like, oh, right, whoa, that's wild. Yeah. You know, and like it kind of made everything hit me at once. It's like fucking A, man. Like this kid that was like 5 years old and 10 years old and 15 years old, Dillinger Escape Plan, Black Queen, Kill to Be Killed, all these things that have kind of like and I'm like, fuck, that's that guy, and that's like the guy that's on my electric bill, and that's the dude that's sitting here looking at it right now, and that's the guy that goes to and plays fucking Fortnite with his friends or something. It's all the same person, and that's wild, and it felt really good, and it felt really freeing, and it felt really like necessary, and like that it was like the beginning of a new thing, but also the result of a really long process that I had really undergone of protectionism and like I said, splitting, so like almost
having that shield up from that other part of your life.
Shielding and splitting I've kind of dealt with a lot, where I've split avenues of my personality and into different bands or into different relationships and even, like I said, protected my own my core from the public thing. And it's like, now I'm in like this new frontier that's fucking, and as an artist, vulnerability is exciting, because there's a lot to be gained there. And obviously creatively for me going forward professionally, now it's just exciting to have something that I don't ever have to worry about whether someone else is ready to rock, someone else is ready to go, someone else sees eye to eye with.
Right. Yeah.
Like I can make that thing move at any time without anyone else really needing to be around. And it also makes the bands more exciting, because I'm like, okay, now the parameters of each of those bands is more defined to me in a way that isn't frustrating. It's freeing. It's like, okay, cool.
It's a different box. It's a different room.
Yeah, it's a different box, and I know where they go, and I know, what, if something falls in between the cracks, it's got a place for it. And it's got a place for it with a name that I'm never going to be able to get rid of, really. Right. It's not like 10 years from now, or 80 years from now, I might feel, or, when I'm 80, I might feel silly about it. If I'm like, God damn it, I really fucked up by making sure all my solo output has to be called Child Soldier. I'm 80 years old. So, but now, now I can say, well, I'm stuck with that name, so I can. There's something freeing about that too. Like, just like, fuck it.
I mean, yeah, there's a long history for it. I think it almost comes from the world of punk rock. 'Cause, I mean, folks like Glenn Campbell weren't thinking about that. They were just,
no,
let's make a record. Okay,
well,
cool.
Look,
call it Glenn Campbell.
Think about what I was saying before about just being like, do you, figure out, fuck it. If you want to put two different types of songs on one record, do it. You want to be in two different kinds of bands, do it. Like, you figure out who you are. And like, I think I have been spending the last 20 years or so, like, figuring that out, not just behind the scenes, but artistically and shit. And now I'm like, yeah, this is who I am. This is where I'm going. This is what it is. And like, not being afraid of it, not being embarrassed or guilty or having any kind of reservation about it, and being like, fuck it, man, here it is. Take it or leave it. Like, moving on.
So there's a couple things I really, really want to get to. One of them you actually mentioned. I know that, doing those shows with Cantrell, like singing those songs, I assume you were a fan back in the day.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
So, I mean, is that...
I'll tell you, Alice in Chains, I had 2 cassette tapes in my car. I had an 87 Escort, was my first car. I bought it for like
Nice.
$800. Didn't have air conditioning, like fucking vinyl seats, sweating to death, but I felt like parts were falling out of it at like every second. But I had 2 cassette tapes. I had a cassette tape player, and I had 2 cassette tapes in the car. And the 2 cassette tapes were Justice for All, which I had since I was like, for like, at that point I was 15 and a half or 16 or so. And like, I had obviously had that tape since I was like 9 or 8 years old. And so I had Justice for All in the car and Dirt. Those were the 2 cassette tapes that I had. And everything else, I had like one of those Discmen that has like a cassette adapter. So I, started.
Oh,
to, like,
yeah, of course. Yeah, everyone of a certain
you have
age
to hold it
knows
on your
that,
lap so that it wouldn't skip.
Right.
And which just sounds insane now.
I
like,
know.
Anybody,
Oh, God.
yeah.
It was so much more effort.
Both CDs, yeah. But the 2 cassettes that I had were Dirt and Injustice. So yeah, I was a big fan in the Lane era. I was a big fan, and I didn't realize how big of a fan I was until I did the songs with him, and I was just like, oh man, I fucking remember. Like, there's a lot of even tonal shit that I never in my life, like, picked up that influence until I started singing the songs with him. And I was like, oh man, I naturally had pulled a lot from Lane when I was a kid. And like, when I was singing along, I sang along a lot to the stuff that I had, and I sang along a lot to Bad Brains, and I sang along a lot to Faith No More. I sang along to like Alice in Chains and shit. And I just never thought of it until I did the songs with him. And then I was like, oh right, fuck. There was a couple things I had already kind of absorbed from that guy that I never even put together, and
right,
then
just
I started,
like in their subconscious somewhere.
Yeah. So that was a trip. But yeah. But go on. Yeah, I fucking fucked up the question.
Yeah. So no, I was just the experience of like playing those songs, seeing like the audience reaction and engage in that way, because I think it's probably safe to say that there's not a complete overlapping Venn diagram for everything for like Dillinger Escape Plan and Alice in Chains, right? I mean,
no,
different crew.
Yeah, well, you don't realize how big a band is either until I'm not really aware of that kind of stuff. It's like I've got friends that are in giant bands, and friends that are in little bands. And I don't really think about it. It's like I either vibe with you or I don't, and then sometimes I become friends with people that are in some huge band, and then you go see them play, and you're like, oh my god, dude, really? Like, arena full? There's a fucking arena full of people here. Fuck is wrong? What are you? Kind of shit do you get into, But like,
dude,
but
you're
kind of aware of it. You're aware of it, but you're not. It's like I have friends like that too. It's like I have friends that met me that like didn't know, and then they go back later and they're like, dude, did you know that? Like, I'm like, yeah, dude, I know, I get it. Like, and they're like, you have a Wikipedia? I'm like, I know, dude. Like, there's like 8 million videos of you on YouTube. I'm like, yes, dude, I know, And then they fucking come see you play or something, and they're like, what the fuck, There's like all kinds of people there.
Right.
It trips them out. So I have friends like that too, and like the Jerry thing was weird because I knew that, like I knew it, and like I knew that like they were, big all over the radio and they were big all over MTV and all this shit, but you don't really put it together until you, like I said, you experience someone else's life to a degree, and you're like, oh right, Christ Almighty, you were in at the time a band, you were when MTV was at its biggest.
Yeah, the gold rush.
You were a fucking rock star, celebrity on the same level. It's like, dude. There was Pearl Jam and Nirvana, and if you were around back then, you know of this tier. It's like Pearl Jam and Nirvana were like, okay, we're the biggest, and then but right under that was Soundgarden and Alice in Chains,
yep.
Like, right under that. So those were basically the two tiers, and like that guy was in the fucking, it's like that's as big as you can get, and like, so yeah, like kind of going into that world, and it was a little bit of a trip. I didn't, because like I said, when you're rehearsing, that's one thing. You don't really put it together. You're just like sitting next to a dude, playing rehearsal. You're kind of becoming buds, and you're starting to hang out outside of that, and it all seems pretty normal. And then, all of a sudden you're in this realm where there's like all these fucking people that are, it's like, holy shit, there's all these people are really into this thing. And they were small shows, but like it was still obvious that it was like, holy shit, like. For me, it was a lot,
the deep connection to that music.
Yeah.
Well,
it was a lot of pressure, man. I felt like a shit ton of pressure because not just for me being a fan of Lane and I mean, I think he's one of the greatest rock singers of all time. Like I've heard his isolated vocal tracks a bunch. I was, like I think he's got, some of the most natural power of any rock singer ever. He had one of the most interesting vibratos and some of the most interesting natural tonality of any rock singer ever, and like. So going into that and knowing that, like, especially when a guy, not just when a band is big, but when a guy dies, there's a lot of
pressure,
ownership in the fan base, and there's a lot of arm crossing and being like you put someone in front of people that aren't previous fans and they're not coming from a Dillinger world where they're predisposed to liking me or something. They're going to be like, who is Dillinger Escape Plan? Yeah. Like they might have heard of it, they might have, but chances are 99% of them have not, and like. I was aware of that, and I was just like, fuck, man, I'm going to be really, really nervous. We're not even going to be rocking. I'm not even going to be able to like, walk around. You're sitting down.
Like, so that's the thing. That's the thing that got me on those shows.
And shit, fog and stuff where I can be like, I'm not going to be able to crush you with volume. I'm going to be sitting in a goddamn stool. You know what I mean? Like next to, the last time people saw this guy on a stool, he was playing the MTV Unplugged shows, which is like the greatest MTV Unplugged of all time. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. Like, So yeah, dude, I mean, I dig pressure, like people are always like, was it a lot of pressure to have your first Dillinger record be like right after Mike Patton? And I was like, yeah, it was, but I like that because if you believe that you've got the stuff, you want, if you're Kobe Bryant, you want your rookie year, you want to face Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Like
even you got to prove something to yourself, if nothing else.
Dude, even if he schools you, you want to face him. You want to face the best, and you want to be next to the best. So it's like you want to see what you're made of, and like you want to fucking rise to the competition. So it's like when he asked me to come sing those songs, it's like it's supposed to be like 3. He was going to do like a thing, I think, where he had like a bunch of people playing different songs, and then I did a couple. I sat in his living room with him, and we sang like Wood and Down in a Hole and shit. And then he was like, "Cool, you want to do all of them?" And I was like, "Oh." like immediately right. I'm like, yes, like
someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
Yeah, exactly. He's like 30, and like I'm like, oh, cool, yep, I'll do it, and then that, basically I'm in the middle of tracking my records. I have to stop my record completely, and then learn all these songs. But then as we got closer to it, it like dawned on me, like, oh my god, I'm gonna be 2 feet away from. There's going to be people that were around back then. There's going to be people that saw Lane, that weren't just there for Will, didn't just hear about it, but people that were there and they're ready to eat me alive. So I was needless to say, I was fucked up, dude. I was fucked up. I was like, I was like half a bottle of whiskey deep before we even went on stage. I don't remember a whole lot of even playing. I just knew that I was good. I knew that I was good enough to not be bummed at it.
Because you did the work, and you knew the tunes, and you did the work.
Dude, I practiced my fucking balls off, dude. I sang those songs probably 1,000,000 times. I learned every single inflection. I learned everything. I saw shows where Lane was awesome. I saw bad Lane shows. I watched every YouTube version of every live song that they had ever played. Like, and I, fucking pretty much became like a fucking scholar of all the live versions of these. Like,
sure, totally. Yeah. Do the work. Yeah, totally.
And, just became a stamina machine where I could have done those sets like 10 times in a row and been like, let's do it again. I just really wanted to like go into it being like, I am so over prepared for this that there's no way that I can, I'm just going to be nervous. That's it. If I can just get over being nervous, that I know that I'm going to be where I need to be vocally. And so that was where it was. But yeah, right. The actual, dude, it's intense. Playing in front of people in small environments is intense.
It's a different experience.
Really intense. Yeah, really fucking intense. And those kinds of songs, they're not like, there's not a lot of bells and whistles, man. Those songs hold up to like singer, songwriter. You can just strip them down to an acoustic guitar and like there's nothing else there. And like, it's not like you're yelling and screaming and someone's playing a crazy, polyrhythm on the drums, or it's not like there's like a bunch of like really fucking huge sounding electronic kicks and snares like a Black Queen, or like there's like a lot of energy that like a riff like a Killer Be Killed. It's like, no, these are fucking, we're just sitting here playing some singer-songwriter acoustic songs for 2.5 straight fucking hours.
Yeah.
Songs
that like mean the world to the people in the audience, dude, that like are just so engaged in every note.
Songs that mean the world to the people in the audience. Songs that were originally sung by one of the best rock singers that's ever held a microphone. And Cantrell is a fucking great singer on his own.
He's a great singer. Yeah, absolutely. And
he wrote the fucking song.
Right.
So that's the other thing. It's like you got this guy next to you that like fucking, he played with the guy who was one of the best singers of all time. You're in front of all these people who are fans of one of the best singers of all time. He's one of the best rock songwriters of all time, and he wrote the song. So it's like, and he is a pitch perfect singer. Pitch perfect. Like, he is like the kind of guy, like, he just knows the note. He'll be like, that's a B. And you're like, oh, okay. I'll be like, that's C sharp. And I'm like, all right, weirdo. He like just calls him out of the air,
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm not like that. Like, I know that whether I'm like, this is either in tune or it's not, but I can't just sing a note and tell you that it's a D, Like, I don't,
right.
But he's got a fucking like really crazy ear. And like, so if you sing a little out of pitch, we were in practice a couple times, we were in rehearsal a couple times, and 90% of the people on the earth would have thought I sounded great. And like, we'd finish the song and he'd be like, rough night last night? And I'd be like, are you fucking kidding me, man? Like, fucking really. He'd elbow me and be like, a little pitchy on that one, huh? And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I was like, I thought I had like one note that was like a little bit flat. What the fuck are you talking about, man? But yeah, but I needed that. Like, it took me to a fucking level.
That's like that James Brown band discipline, right? You just the slightest fuck up, and he just make sure that I saw that.
Well, the other thing is if you're harmonizing if you're singing by yourself, like, yes, you can be a little flat, you could be a little pitchy, and like, it doesn't really matter that much. But if you're harmonizing with someone and you go out, it's immediate dissonance, and it's you, because it's not that guy.
Yeah,
because he's done these songs 8 million times. So it's just like, oh shit, like there's fucking, and the whole crowd's gonna be like, like the second you fucking hit that wrong note, they're gonna be like,
they're gonna make a face like somebody farted, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, it was cool, man. Definitely, it raised my level. I hadn't recorded vocals yet for my record at that point, so after that was over with, I was like, it was like boot camp. So I went back into my record off in like a different shape than I had ever been since then, and I've pretty much stayed there. Like, it raised, like we were talking about, it's like if you go from the NBA or college to the NBA, it's like get your ass kicked a few times, you get used to playing up against a different level of competition, then suddenly you have just risen your own level, and like I realized that after I'd gotten out of that, the shape that my voice was in was a different shape than I'd been in for a long time, and a lot of that too is because I'm not screaming 200 shows a year, so
it's
my voice is physically
in a different way. Yeah, sure, of course, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I finished my record and I was like, well, I could just go back into like, I would like to maintain this level from here on out, you know? So I've kind of been aware of that since then. And it definitely pulled me into a different, it's not a league. It just pulled me into a different level of self. I hold myself to a different standard now than I would have beforehand, because I would never have had someone around me. I'd never had someone around me before kicking my ass that way vocally. So it's like, and like a whole imaginary audience kicking my ass that way vocally too, you know?
Yeah. It's
people that are ready to be like, get the fuck off the stage, you know?
It's like that.
Fuck out of here. Get this guy out of here. You know?
It's like that Kowloon Walled City song, "The Pressure Keeps Me Alive."
Yeah, he didn't need me there. He could have sang them songs himself, and the same amount of people would have been there, and they'd have been amped. So it's like, I just have to be good enough to not fuck up your thing, dude. That's all I was thinking about. Like, I'm not trying to be lame, not trying to be as good as that guy. It's like, I'm not trying to pretend I'm as good as that guy. Just sort of fuck up your thing, bro. So,
Greg, this has been great, and I want to be mindful of your time. You've already given so much of it. I do, real quick, we've talked about Kill or Be Killed, like, referentially a few times.
Yep.
But there's actually there's some new Kill or Be Killed, and just, if you could, real quick, speak a little bit to that and that record. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll keep going. I don't do a lot of these, so I feel like
there's a lot to cover.
Good.
And that's without us BSing about the state of the world.
And furthermore,
right.
Yeah.
The other thing about Trump is
man, Kill or Be Killed. Yeah, I mean, what do you want to know?
So you got Reluctant Hero coming out now. For those not in the know, of course, this is with Max from Sepultura, and you got Troy and from Mastodon, and Ben from Converge. You know, there's a word for that. I hate using that word, so I'm not going to. But it's a word. It's a group of people, all from very established bands that are established and respected, kind of doing its own thing. And that started 2011? Is that right? Something along those lines? It's like,
dude, yeah. I guess 2009 or so.
Oh, even okay, gotcha.
It was 09. 2009.
About 10 years though, basically. About 10 years plus.
Yeah, a small boy's lifetime ago. I fucking I went to a fucking full generation ago. I did a Soulfly guest vocal, and then after that, I feel like it was after that, or maybe it was. I was at a Deftones show in LA at the Avalon. They did a Chi benefit show, and they asked me to come sing a couple songs with them. And they asked Max to come out and sing a song too. So we're sitting backstage and we're talking, and it was just kind of one of those things where you had some kind of chemistry with someone, and we were talking, and we felt like there was this thing happening. And I was like, man, we should do a whole record together, kind of like Nail Bomb. That would be cool. It seemed exciting. Like let's just fucking do it. Like, we could make it a one-off. Doesn't need to be a band, and that no one does this kind of shit. Like, metal's so protective at that, and everyone's it's so weirdly ego-driven, and like, no one collaborates with other people, and then like they do in hip hop and jazz and pop.
Totally.
And like,
yeah.
And to me, those scenes all seem so exciting. And to me, and electronic. Some people just do things together, and they don't need to make it a big thing. It's just, this is its thing, and move on and see what happens from it. And we both felt excited by it, and like I pestered him a little bit about it. Maybe afterwards, I called him a couple times. I'm like, hey man, I wasn't joking. Like, if you weren't joking, I wasn't joking. Let's fucking do this. And drove out to his place in Phoenix, and it was really, really childlike. It was really like the way I would have operated when we were, me and my buddies were 13. Like, I drove to his place, took a guitar, and like we fucking did the demos on an actual 8-track.
Wow,
not like a computer.
Nice.
We did them on.
Nice.
Yeah, we did them on an 8-track with a fucking drum machine. Like, we didn't use programmed drums on a computer. We weren't using like Logic or Pro Tools. Like, we did them on an 8-track. No computer in front of us. Phones not next to us. Just guitars through pedals into an 8-track with a fucking drum machine that we were sitting there hitting with our fingers. And it was the same drum machine that he had used for like Chaos AD and shit like that. So it had all kinds of history and vibe to it, and he had the same like saved sounds and shit that he had back then.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So it's pretty fucking cool. We came up with these 15 demos, and then it's a trip. Like, watching this record come out, it's just, again, like, if you keep life as an adventure and you're just willing to fucking chase excitement a little bit and chase adventure and do things that are put you in unknown situations, things can just grow into the completely different things like that. That was supposed to be a one-off. And then, we're on tour with Mastodon a year later, or maybe a couple months later. Dillinger's on tour with Mastodon. I'd known Troy since I was 22 or 23. And we're on tour, and I believe we were in Canada at that point, and like we were kind of crossing paths at or backstage or something, or right after sound check or right after the show. I can't remember exactly. And Troy was picking my brain a little bit about it because he was like, "What's going on with that thing you're doing with Max?" I guess I saw something about that on Metal News blog, or something. And I was like, "Oh yeah." And he's just like, "Who's going to play bass?" And I was like, "I don't know. I think we would probably just play bass and both sing." And then he's just like, "Oh well, if you want a bass player and a third singer, like, I'm a guy." And I was like, yeah.
Yes.
Well, like, I can do this. This just became a different thing entirely,
Right.
And then he's like, "Cool, let me know when you guys are going to get together again." And I'm there. I was like, "Fucking A, all right." So that just became like a totally different animal. But still, I thought it was a one-off. I really still thought it was going to be a one-time thing until we did these Soundwave shows in Australia with Ben Kohler played drums, and we pretty much immediately at that point knew that we had
something cool.
Yeah, we were like, we can't not explore this further now. Like, we got to do another one, and then it just grew into what it is now. And we're all really amped on the record too. And like for me, I've never been in a metal band. Like I said before, Dillinger wasn't really a metal band. So having a band that I can just say like, this is a heavy band, and I can incorporate, any influence that I have can go into here, but it's going to be in a heavy context. Whether it's alternative or
it's like some of it's thrashy, some of it's a little more doomy,
doomy or whatever it is. It can go in, it can live here, and I can, and it kind of makes me feel like, that's our common denominator. That's our Venn diagram. It's like we were all fans of metal at a really young age. So it's like we get all our 13-year-old selves together in a room, more or less, and we are excited about the same things that we would have been had we been in a basement or a garage when we were together when we were 13. So It's really fucking cool. And, I'm excited about the record. I feel good about it. And yeah.
Time of this recording, I think it's coming out November 20th. This is right. So it's going to be from the time of this recording. It's next week, but whenever you listen to it, whenever Bill listens to it. I want to bring it up just because it's kind of like for a band as like heavy and aggressive as it is, it has kind of a, for lack of a better term, fun vibe. Like it feels like like when I say loose, I don't mean that the playing is loose. I just feel like a lot of bands of, I guess you would call it similar genre, don't have that kind of inviting feel in that way.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It felt like, like I said, if you operate honestly, it's like we have a lot of fun in that band. That's the most fun thing that I've ever been involved in. Not even close. Like easily, it's just fun. And I think it's because we know we don't have to be doing it. There's no like none of us need to do it. And we don't do it enough that we get sick of it. And we don't see each other enough that we're sick of one another. And we don't live in the same place. And we kind of all get together and we know that we're there because we want to be. And we, for whatever reason, we have so much fun that we have just, we decided to live together when we do it. Like every time we rehearse, when we would rehearse for like a week or two at a pop, we would live in an Airbnb together. And then we were like spending all our time together, regardless of whether we were recording or not. And so then when we recorded the record, and it took us like 2 months, we got an Airbnb and we lived in, a house together. So we wake up, we eat breakfast together, we go to the studio, we leave, we go to a restaurant, we go to a bar, we go back to the living room, and we fucking, we're playing through practice amps.
It's like the Monkees.
Dude, we just really felt like we were on like summer vacation, like an extended sleepover where you're all like, when you're a kid and you play, it's like when I was a kid, I used to go to my friend's house and you owned a drum set and we were like 10, 11, 12 at this point, and like I had a guitar and I never wanted it to end. Like we would just try to stay there. We'd play, and then when we were forced to not play anymore, we eat food and then you play Nintendo, and then you try to convince their parents for me to stay, and then you wake up and then you just keep doing that, and you just try to string as many of those days together as you can where you're just hanging out with your buddy and like working on music, and you've got this band that's going to take over the world in your mind, and then you're playing Nintendo and you're hanging out. And like this is kind of, to me, like what we did with this band was like the extension of that vibe, where we're just like, we got this thing, we're amped on, we're having fun, and then we keep, it just stays fun, we get off out of the studio and we're just having a good time. And like even if some of the songs are heavy or aggressive, or even like some parts that are like somber or more serious sounding, like we never stopped we were having so much fun. And like I really feel like, I'm glad you pick up on it, because
it gets
sometimes
over,
you don't know whether
it gets over.
you don't know whether your memory of a thing is coloring your experience of it or not. You know, it's like just because you had a good time doesn't mean other people are having a good time.
It sounds like you're having fun. That can be an insult. Yeah.
yeah. Like
you weren't taking it seriously.
Yeah, it's not. Exactly. You must not have worked too hard on this. But no, when I listen to it, I genuinely like, man, this sounds like fun. And it was because we were having fun, and and for me too, like lyrically, it's not as serious. Like there's only one song on the record that I wrote the whole song, and like that song is lyrically a lot more serious to me than other ones. But like when you're marrying three people's lyrics together too, like you naturally just don't go down as dark or as serious or as heavy subject matters as you do when you're on your own, because you have to we write like a little bit more topically and a little bit more thematically, and it's not as like Dear Diary-ish as like some of my other shit. So like,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
You're not just pouring your shit out. So like, it allows it to stay a little bit looser, and like I think that band is like kind of like our homage to heavy music, that the stuff that we would have, like I said, when we were 13, the thing that got us into this, regardless of whether I went down all these other avenues or not, like at the core of everything I was a kid that was like a real huge fan of like pretty much anything that had guitars and drums. I was a fan of like grunge and alternative and metal and thrash and fucking death and punk and hardcore. I was in all of it, and like this to me feels like this celebratory. I found three other kids, that are also in the school that are into the shit too, and they can all
right, exactly, like, same kids at the same bands in high school. Yeah.
It just so happens that instead of having a combined age of 40, we have a combined age of like 170.
Nice.
It is, but it's still the same vibe, We've managed to all preserve that vibe, and this band kind of brings it out of us a little.
So, and that record's coming out very soon, so be on the lookout for that as well. This has been so great. I would feel remiss if I did not bring up the fact that I think the Dillinger Escape Plan broke up in the best possible way, meaning that giving people advance notice, planning some last shows, just like real. I always like seeing that, because as a fan, it's something where when that there's sort of like for lack of a better term, like a death clock going or something along those lines, especially when it's a band who, let's be frank, was top of their game. It kind of hits a little differently than being like, oh no, so-and-so broke up, that sucks, I would have gone when I saw him last time, or something along those lines. And
or someone dies. There's a couple of those that I regret, man. I could have seen Tom Petty last time.
I know.
He was here, and I was like, I'll see him again. I just didn't feel like going out that night or something.
Dude, same. Exact same for me. And I'm so pissed. At least I saw him one other time before, like years back, but he played at the Fillmore and it was like one of these 20-night residencies, and he played like a fuck ton of covers, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear all these covers, but it was still cool. It was rad, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, man. I guess we did it the right way.
Yeah, well, it's for me, there's no right or wrong way, but I think that's something that's I think notable in a way of like when you think about like Big Black did the same thing, right? They both, and there's something to be said for a band kind of giving like a closing statement, and I think that's that band absolutely did that, and it's I guess that's not a question so much as just a observation, but I mean, do you feel that hit the way that you wanted it to hit, the legacy of Dillinger?
Oh man, yeah. Again, like I kind of just look forward and try not to.
Yeah, you're not a backwards-looking dude, I know, but
no, I've never looked at like YouTube comments of all that stuff or anything. But like, I guess it seemed like people were. No, it seemed like people were amped. It was different from our perspective because we were done. Like we were really at our end. Like we were done. Like man, it wasn't like some fucking happy end, man. Like I think that people think that we were all just like stoked to be going through it, and like we weren't. It wasn't celebratory on our end. It was funeral-esque, and like I barely wanted to do the record. Like I barely wanted to do the record. I barely wanted to do any of the touring. Like we only did it because we didn't want to be dicks. Like we didn't do it because we like were all amped to go spend another 2 years together. Like we were ready to be done.
Right. Yeah.
Not because of personal reasons, but because the things that I think, looking back at it now, the alarms that were going off in each of our lives for different reasons, were that we cannot actualize who we are as individuals because the Dillinger Escape Plan is taking up so much room in our lives that the rest of our aren't able to grow. We're not able to become the people that we would be without it because it's taking up so much room. And so that's, for some people that means family and other kinds of things. And for me, it meant like creative avenues and in professional artistic actualization. And like, there's just the things that you're not doing, the things that we weren't doing, and the pieces of ourselves that we weren't growing, we're starting the alarms of those opportunities being missed and those developments not happening. That alarm was louder than the excitement that we had for the thing, you know, and like it eclipsed that, and it started to eclipse it for me. Like, you know, everything's, you know, you start to push back against it and try to figure out how to make space for yourself in a way that allows you to develop and actualize. And I couldn't actualize with the band. I couldn't be doing everything I'm doing now. If I was still spending 90% of my life doing that. And like,
no way.
Liam and Ben, those guys have families and shit that take up a lot of their time and all kinds of these other things. Like they couldn't have those developments to the degree that they've developed. And even psychologically behind the scenes, you got to see what you're made out of without the thing, you know? So we needed to, all those alarms were going off, and, you know, there was, you know, just other things behind the scenes that had happened where we just needed time away from one another personally. And, by the time you get to the point where you're ready to pull the plug, it's because you've all been sitting on these tea kettles for so long that they're whistling at max volume, and you're like, all right, fuck, we're done. We got to get out of here. And then in 2 years, you know, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here right now. 2 years from now,
yeah,
you know,
right.
That's kind of what it felt like. And
kind of a long death clock, as it turns out.
yeah. It's like you're like, get the fuck out of here 2 years from now. But like. So it became hard to enjoy it, and like it just seemed, and then things that were happening along the way, like the bus accident that we were in, it all just became, God damn it. But looking back at it, I do feel that was the right decision, because I feel like we went everywhere under the sun, and there was no one that could say that they didn't have like a heads up, you know, and it allowed us to kind of sit with it for a minute and feel like we weren't making like a rash decision. But by the time those shows were over, like we were all ready to go. Like it wasn't like we were sitting around being sad. Like we were like, all right, cool, move on. You know?
Yeah, peace. Yeah.
It was more of a stress, and it was more just like it became built into this giant thing, like where it was like this black hole in front of you that you don't know what's on the other side of. And
right.
And it was fine. It was all fine. Like I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, I'm fine. I'm still here. You know what I mean? Like you touch yourself and you're like, I'm still me. Like I'm still working on the same Black Queen record that I was working on, you know, a couple months ago. I'm still tinkering away at this Kill to Be Killed thing that's forming in the background. And, you know, I didn't know about the solo record and stuff like that, but I trusted myself enough in my own journey. That's like, I'm still on the same journey that I was on, like that I started when I was 9 years old and picked up a guitar, and I keep kind of treating my life that same way. And like, I'm not the guy that I was yesterday. I'm the guy that I am today. Like, I'm not defined by the thing that I did yesterday. I'm the guy that I am today, the guy that I'm going to be tomorrow. And like, you're constantly, you know, if you're treating this like it's exciting, like this life and this journey and this artistic trajectory, you're trying to just treat it like you would have been before you knew what you were. You know, you're always trying to make that thing. You're trying to challenge yourself to do new things. And so I knew that I still felt the same level of excitement and love for what I was doing. I felt like I was still at the top of my game, you know, or still reaching the top of my game, talent wise, artistic wise. That I wasn't scared. You know, I wasn't scared. I knew that fortunately, I know that I'm not unaware that I have an audience enough to like allow me to continue to do this professionally. And I'm very grateful for that. But like, I felt excited. Like I didn't feel scared anymore. I felt really scared during it because it's fucking around you all the time. Like every day you do every day you're like encountering people that are acting like you're leaving them or what's going to happen. And then you're doing,
right.
You know, and then
why are you doing this to me? Yeah.
Why are you doing this to me? And then you do an interview with someone that's like, what are you going to do? And like, what are you going to do is if like, you're like losing your ability, like you're just like, oh my God, like you can't do anything else at all, you know? And
right.
Like, you just like, what are you going to do for a living or what are you going to do with your life? Like kind of thing, as if you're just retiring from music in general.
Yeah,
or
you're hanging up the gloves. Exactly.
Yeah. But once you got on the other side, it's like, no, dude, I'm still gonna make movies. I'm just not gonna be Han Solo for a bit. It's okay, dude. Like, so, you know, like but again, that's all music shit, man. It doesn't happen in other. No one expects. It's like no one expects Harrison Ford to be, you know. No one was like, hey, Bill Murray, what are you gonna do after Ghostbusters, bro? Like, what are you gonna do? Bro? You got some other stuff you're gonna do after Pirates of the Caribbean, Johnny Depp? You gonna do something else, huh? Like fucking. You better fucking not let that go, you know. But no, I think that if you trust in your thing and you're excited about it, it's like you just do what you do. And like I woke up the next day, I was in New York. I woke up in the hotel, and I was like, oh, yeah, still here, still gonna keep going. We're gonna gonna make this happen. Gonna make this work. It's still fine. And now I look back at it again, talking about integration. It's like I'm super proud of it. Super proud of it. It doesn't feel like something from my past. It doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel. I have my concept of time. I have a hard time with linear time. It's like it's a side effect of ADD. Like I have what's called object like impermanence or whatever, which is kind of the flip side of temporary objects. I don't really understand time, and I don't see when something's in front of me, it's real, and when something's not in front of me, it's like not real, and like I have a really difficult time. Like in that way, all things are kind of happening at once. Like I remember something from when I was 13, as well as I remember something from last week, and there's some things from yesterday that I don't remember, and like it's all really it doesn't really seem like linear time. So like when I think about Dillinger Escape Plan now, it just feels like almost like a place. It feels like a room or like a house or a place that I could just go to and it would still be there. And in a lot of ways, that's true. It's like we're all still alive. We're not. It's not like one of us is gone. Like if we wanted to turn the thing back on, and it's like the car is just sitting in park. It's in the garage. If we wanted to turn it on and drive it around, we could.
Right.
It's not like we don't know how to. If you gave me a microphone right now and was like, you got to play a Dillinger show in 10 minutes, like I would fucking light that shit up. Like I wouldn't.
Right, yeah. Because you just know it. It's in that muscle memory, right?
I remember how to play all the songs. I haven't forgotten them. My voice I'm in the same shape. Like I could play a show in 10 minutes, but like it doesn't mean that we need to, or we want to, or we should. It's like you got to be. I don't think we're anywhere close to like I said, I think we broke up because we needed to see what happens to us individually and who we're going to become without that thing, crowding out the room. And we're going to have to form really full pictures of our adult lives that would allow us to let that thing back into the room from a position of want and have it have a place in each of our lives that we're happy with and comfortable with. And you don't resent one another because one of you is, when you're together, then you're like kind of playing this game of chicken where you're like, well, shit, like Greg's starting to do all this other stuff. And like, what happens if like, he's just like, kind of just wants to do all this other stuff and Dillinger just becomes like this thing that he wants to do some of the time, or that's like, oh shit, this guy's having a family. And what happens if he doesn't want to go on tour all the time because he doesn't want to leave his kids? And like, you start kind of playing this weird, like, are you still really fully into this? And it's like, that you're not, that you are trying to like develop all these other lives. And the only way you can really do that is to let the thing go, is to get rid of the thing for a while. And that while might be forever. It might not be forever, but it feels correct right now, for it to not be there.
Well, I appreciate you speaking to that. I made a special point of not bringing it up because I think it's important to focus on all the cool shit that you're doing now. But I think it's something
but like,
it means a lot
if we're
to
gonna do
people.
something like this, and we're gonna talk for a couple hours, and we're gonna really make this fucking a deep dive, then let's fucking talk about it all. Let's fucking put it all in there.
Well, I appreciate.
What's up, Dillinger fans? Hey guys, I know you got I'm gonna break the third wall here. What's up, Dillinger fans? Hey everybody, fucking thanks for still being here. That's it.
So, Greg, this has been so great. Thanks so much for spending so much time with me. I have one last thing I always ask folks before I close the show down. It's the only canned question I ever do, and you can interpret it however you like. It's just, why do you do what you do?
I do what I do. There's a line in Evacuations where I say, I've never been in love with anything so much. Like, and I'm talking about this. Like, I'm talking about making art and music and creating and all of it, man. I love it. Like, I love it to the degree that I can't explain with words. Like, I love it. I love writing music. Like, I love playing instruments. I love singing. Like, I love writing melodies. I love collaborating. I love meeting new people and getting a spark with them and doing something new. Like, I love the fucking Jerry shit. I love the Black Queen shit. I love the Kill Be Kill shit. I love Dillinger Escape Plan. I love my soul work. I love all of it. I love other people's output, and I love music, and I love the culture. I love the record company thing. And like, fuck, dude. Like, I love sitting backstage. I love the way being at a truck stop in Idaho feels. I love rooms in Bristol that don't have heat and where you're huddled next to a space heater, eating your rider in a room that has graffiti all over the walls. Like, and I love it. Like, I love it so much. And like, I love it as much. It's like almost making me cry. Like, I love it as much as I loved it when I was 9 and I was just a fan of it. And I picked up a guitar and I could tell that I could write, and I could tell that like I could make a feeling come out of me that I could express, and like I could write melodies and write words and put them together, and I could see things that didn't exist and make them exist. And like I fucking love every fucking bit of it, man. And like, I love the feeling of like, to me, it's like finding a dinosaur bone, and like you find like the toe of a dinosaur bone, and you start brushing away at it, and then you're like, holy shit, a brontosaurus, you know? And like that's to me what this all is. It's like you find this connection that is a conversation with Max backstage at the Avalon, you know, and it turns into this thing. And now we're talking about Kill to Be Killed record number 2, 10 years from now. And Troy's involved, who I've known since I was 22, and Ben Kohler's involved, who I've known since I was 22. It's like, you know, the Dillinger thing became like this lifelong journey, and like the Black Queen thing was just like a weird. It's like I went to a bar one night to watch fucking a band of, you know, Billy Howardell. I think it was like Billy Howardell and someone else, like a side project or something, and like that wasn't Perfect Circle, obviously, and you know, Steve, or you know, I call him Asian Steve. Asian Steve was there, and like fucking that came into the Black Queen, and it's like, dude, I love every fucking bit of it. Like I love all of it. Like I love all of it so much that I wish I could divide myself up. Like I wish I could just clone myself and like do all of them full time at the same time, you know. And I think it's obvious by how much I can't, you know, I don't stop doing shit, and that's why I keep doing it, man. Like I keep doing it because I love it. Like I'm so fucking excited about it. Like I wake up fucking excited every day, and it's so much that I don't have any, like I don't have much of a rest of my life. Like I don't much have a life outside of it, and I don't even care. You know, like I love it to the degree where I don't even give a fuck. Like I don't give a fuck that I don't have kids, or like that I'm not married, or that I don't have any of this other shit. I don't have hobbies that I really care about. It's like whatever reason, man, I've just been fully about this now for like the longest that I can remember being alive, and nothing seems to be coming close in any meaningful way to me. So I'm just gonna keep riding it out until either I die or the big picture changes and something does start to mean as much to me. But right now, man, I'm just fucking can't get enough of it all, and I've never been able to.
Hell yeah. This has been great, man.
Fuck yeah, man. Hell yeah, brother. Oh, fuck.
No, that's great. It's been great talking to you, dude. This has been awesome. Thanks so much for doing it.
You never know what you're going to get. Again, it's like you can never know what you're going to get with these things. But yeah, it's just like anything else. You find someone that you can talk to easily about shit, and they can pivot around and jump around. And, let's do it. Sorry to those last 3 people that I've just blown off. But,
yeah.
Fuck yeah, man. All right, brother. Talk to you or see you in person or something like that. Hopefully before, you know.
COVID can't last for forever.
Before too long, you know. Yeah. I'd like to think that we're not in the end times, that we're, you know, that this isn't the grand finale of the species, that we'll get through it.
I think this is just a really weird, dark chapter right now. I really do think that.
So, it's a warning. It's a fucking warning shot. You know, it's like you fell asleep at the wheel and you hit the strip on the side of the road. You go, oh shit!
Yeah.
You know, it makes a sound. Like,
right. Yeah, you're driving overnight to the next show and you hit the bumps. Boom, 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 boom. Oh,
yeah,
shit!
Yeah, you're like, you wake up and you're, oh shit, Trump's president and the oceans are rising. You know, like fucking, there's tons of, we're basically in a third world country. There's 9 million homeless people, and fucking, shit's all, there's racists everywhere. It's like, what the fuck? You know, you got to get it back on track. Man. We thought shit was cool. We got caught sleeping at the wheel, man. We had a black guy president. Gays are getting married. Weed's legal. You think things are fucking chill. They're not chill. You know, you just fucking, you thought they were, because, you know, outwardly you're like, oh, everything's pretty cool. No, there's a lot. Got to keep your wits about you. You know?
Constant vigilance.
But all right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care, man.
Later, man.
There he goes. Greg Puciato. That was awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let's hear a tune from Child Soldier, Creator of God, and yeah, thanks for listening.
You see yourself when you see me. Walk through the air when we're free. Uncertain in your sovereignty. We feel awake when others
Well, there we go. That is Down When I'm Not. And before that, Evacuation, both off of the new Greg Puciato record.
Can you hear me now?
Child Soldier, Creator of God. I was going to play some Kill or Be Killed and some Dillinger Escape Plan too, but we talked for a while, so you can hear the record whenever it is your records, and I highly suggest you do. Good records both.
Is this thing
And
on?
a good time. What a cool guy. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I did. Apple Music, Amazon, just
Can you hear me now?
Bandcamp. Go find it. Support your independent record labels.
As we come to the close of our broadcast day,
Name of the show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal.
this is my farewell transmission.
Your broadcast on Radio Note, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific, Thursdays.
Signing off, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea.
Also, pretty much whenever I feel like it.
Anyone within the sound of my
ProtoniCreversal.com
voice.
for the archives. Patreon.com/ProtonicReversal
I've got
if you want to support the show
50,000 watts of power.
and get episodes sooner. $1 a month will get you there. No ads, no sponsors,
I wanna
no kidding.
ionize the air.
Thanks to everyone getting reviews to the show. It helps people find it. Spreading the word through
This
social media.
microphone turns sound into electricity.
It's always appreciated, even on YouTube.
Can you hear me now? Out on
Stay safe out there.
128, you're dark and lonely. I got my radio
Take it
on.
easy.
Can you hear me now? 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 The end of radio. And that snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner. If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, my radio on. Can you hear